Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be in the world. It is I, Ryan Sheelander, and my wonderful co-host, as always, Andy Law. We're here for another episode of Lorebeards.
Lorebeards! Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one an enormous amount, but I'm looking forward to this one for completely different reasons to anybody else out there. I'm looking forward to this one because, assuming that we don't create something stupid, I intend to make this character part of my history in Lawhammer. So whatever we decide to create today is going to become canon to my other universe over on the side, because I'm really lacking in decent R. Ulrich material, because no one has written any, pretty much ever. I was a bit disappointed to find that the Middenheim book, the new one, when eventually it came out, didn't have a big long list of cool R. Ulrichs who'd done cool things. What did it have? Pretty much, the normal stuff you'd expect for one of these roleplay books, but not just cool quibbly bits about the stuff I wanted. We all have our own desires. And I wanted more R. Ulrich, so I'm really pleased that today we're going to be making one. This is going to be cool.
Yeah, so I just finished reading earlier yesterday. I finished reading the first of the Genevieve series. So I finished Drakenfels, which was super fun, very, very good time. And it's weird how in that book clearly they hadn't created R. Ulrich yet, because they only refer to him as the High Priest of Ulrich. And he's he's kind of a goofball character in that book. I mean, there's a lot of weird characters in the book. Like, Boris didn't exist yet, it seemed like, because he's also
actually,
only...
Boris did exist by that point. It's just, for reasons unknown to anyone, Jack Yovel / Kim Newman decided to ignore the vast majority of the material in The Enemy Within. At the very beginning of The Enemy Within, a book that was published by the time that he was doing his books, it's got a big list of all the Electra counts and who they are. Some he used, Emmanuel, for example, he used, and he did not paint her in a flattering light.
No, he did not at all.
Where others, he just plain ignored. Particularly if you take a look at what happened down in Sudenland, where he just goes, yeah, you have the Mecklenburg, he's the dude down there. And it's like, no, he's not. That's completely the wrong guy. What's going on here? So yeah, it's quite a fun book.
Yeah, it's a good time. Some of it translates surprisingly well to modern times. Some of it really doesn't.
I sort of love that book because I cut my teeth in it, so to speak, in that I was a pretty young chap when I first read that first time around. This is before I even turned 20 when I first read that. And it defined a lot of what I felt Warhammer was at the time. And it's really interesting to see how much has managed to hang around and just how much has completely changed, because some parts of it are entirely different.
Yeah, but so I had a good time with that. But it was very much one of those things where I think that was the thing that I was like, oh, we should really do our own, because there's like so few of them in existence. Like they're just not out there. And it felt like the perfect time, because I mean we've done an R. Ulrich stream just very, very recently. And of course we already talked about that good old Total War has unleashed their version of Vinland, which we've got good old Toddy. We got It's Fucking Toddy for Total War, which is great. And he looks very, very nice. And there's lots of fun units coming with him, and it should be a really good time. But so this is going to be one of those streams where we're going to be doing a lot of polls, a lot of chatting, and we're going to see what we would end up with working alongside you all to figure out our own. And there is a very wide range of years to look at.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, because as most of you probably know, my job has long been to take ideas and develop them, hopefully, into something better. One of the core parts of my job when I'm, say, producing other people's material or helping them develop is to take ideas, look over them, and say, what can we do to make this something that really sings, that really makes you go, that's awesome. So I love doing these sort of streams, the create your own streams, because we're in a position where we can all sit down, come up with an idea, and then hopefully turn it into something that's just not what anyone expects. And so far, all of our create your own streams have created something that I think is just genuinely brilliant, which is why I said right at the very beginning of the stream this time, assuming that we don't create someone who is purposely designed to be an idiot, we can put this together, and I'll be using it in Lawhammer in the history for Lawhammer and why Lawhammer is the way it is in my game over on the other side, which I think will be pretty fun.
Yep. All right. So let's go ahead and work towards getting things up and rolling. Getting gleeful. Thank you. Yeah. And our Ulrich, dangerous title there.
So you might note that there is a typo sitting on our funky thumbnail card at the moment. I'll probably change it later because it says Al Ulrich instead of R Ulrich. And yeah, it does make an anal Ulrich, which is quite funny. So yeah, that's fun.
that has to be a joke some Sigmarite has written on a wall on the Grand Temple of Middenheim in paint at one time in history.
I think it's almost inevitable.
Amadeus, can this Al Ulrich or R Ulrich be a woman?
So the answer to this is no, but yes. So the answer is no, because there hasn't been one. And somewhat famously, the cult of Ulrich is pretty misogynistic. But in the past, it wasn't. And we go all the way back to approximately, what year was it that they split off? Around about 1200, somewhere around there somewhere. I can't remember what year exactly. But it's around about 1,000 or so years ago. The cult were kicked out of Middenheim. And when they returned again at about 1400 in the time of the rise of the Wolf Emperors, everything changed for the cult, and it became, if anything, much, much more deeply misogynistic. And in some respects, its history could have changed as well. So if we were doing a female one, there would be two proper, obvious routes to take if we did that. First would be to make it a very early R Ulrich, someone who was blessed by Ulrich, because gods don't really care if you're male or female. And when you become blessed, you're going to be doing shit that normal people can't do. And it doesn't really matter if your body is a bit weaker than someone else's. Once you've been with Ulrich for a while, yeah, you're going to be a kick-ass mofo. That being the case, that could easily work. And we could also discuss how that our Ulrich has been repitched over time in the same way that, say, for example, to choose a real-world example, at least one, if not two or three pharaohs of ancient Egypt were female. And they were repitched as male in different parts of histories, and in some cases completely bearded up in a whole variety of fun and exciting ways. I mean, you could do the same here. So we could effectively say, back in the midst of time, there was one who was female, and history has re-recorded exactly how this particular Ulrich was. So that could make for a great heretical history. You find out about it in time and find out that one of the old Ulrichs was in fact female, contrary to what the cult currently discusses. The other most obvious option would be to just do that, but a more modern version, and say that one of the more modern Ulrichs, after the time they returned to Middenheim, was a woman, but for some reason that has been lost to history. But if we're doing it according to the standard history, the answer to this one is just no. There just isn't. It's a deeply misogynistic cult in that regard. And that's not to say that they don't love women or have lots of women in them at various points in their history. They did. But come the modern era, there is only really a single temple of Ulrich in all of the old world. That's at Sudfast, that focuses on training female priests. Anywhere else, they're pretty much all men. It's not universally men, but almost entirely universally men. So the answer to this one is probably no, but hey, we can always make something different.
True. We'll see where the votes take us. Mm-hmm. Dapper Dwarf. Can't stay for the whole stream, but since the greatest of Grey Seers is most likely to be part of Lords of the End Times, Thankful/Skaven stream soon. We'll probably do... we've got a couple, not too many more, but we've got a couple more like specific streams we've got to do. After that, we'll be getting back into polling and stuff like that. So I know a lot of people would love for us to return to Skaven, so that is a very likely possibility.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Thanquil. Yes!
Sean Schultz, how does our Ulrich view the Wood Elves and the Dawi?
So we're talking about the leader of the entire cult of the Cult of War. And the leader of that particular cult, if they are warring against them, does not think much of them. If they're allying with them, thinks of them positively. They don't, in general, have much in the way of an opinion at all for the Azrai, because they almost never meet them. It's a very rare thing. The Aeonir, however, the wood elves that pretty much are on the border, have long been loosely, and I do mean loosely, allied with Middenheim. Because of that, they have a relatively half-half decent relationship. The Dawi, by comparison, they're really far away from, but occasionally they meet them in battlefields, often as allies, and they see them as staunch, capable defenders of generally good guy shit, and they consider themselves good guys. But they are sometimes on opposite sides of the battlefield. Loosely, it's all about how good are they at war? Both are good, so there is respect in both cases, but if they're enemies, that respect quickly turns into insult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and generally, like, yeah, because our Ulrich is just going to be exposed a lot less. Like, there are groups, there's obviously like the Dawi refugees from the mountains nearby that used to live there, but eventually made their way over to Middenheim. And those ones will have a more positive relationship, but they're also not really as much part of the traditional Karazhan Corps by any stretch of the imagination. And there are some wood elves that live in the city as well, but they also he doesn't get to interact with them as much as, like, say, the Grand Theogonists or some of the other cults might with other factions.
Yeah, you got to remember that our Ulrich is not a diplomat, and for all he is sometimes cast in a position where he is going to be talking to others, particularly when it comes to matters of war, it's largely matters of war that he is concerned with, which means he's not taking in various other people from various other places and having chats with them. He's often on the front lines, leading warriors, leading his white wolves, leading priests, basically orchestrating the cult of Ulrich across the world, which, let's be honest, is mostly across the north of the old world and mostly the empire, but orchestrating that cult towards the various wars that are locally occurring. He is, after all, the chief priest of the cult of war. So that's often what he's doing, orchestrating war, which is not the most political, although it's very political, of positions, particularly given that the Knights of the White Wolf are the largest knightly order in the entirety of the old world. So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a strong... Each one would have a different view, depending upon the wars of the time.
Azure Shadow in RW.
In real world.
We had a young Pope. What about a young R. Ulrich?
It's possible, but and I'll explain how it's possible. In the cult of Ulrich, might is often perceived as right. So that means if you can beat up the local priest and you are a priest, you will often become appointed the high priest. If all the high priests decide to try and take out our Ulrich, then yeah, they could potentially challenge him and take him down. But our Ulrich is a position for life, and it's considered dishonorable to challenge him. So to challenge him is to be dishonorable to begin with, and it's a cult of honor. Got to remember that. Now, if our Ulrich dies, any of the high priests from any of the temples anywhere in the old world could be nominated to be the next one. And indeed, if they get enough votes, they will become the next pope of the cult of Ulrich, for use of that lovely term, the young pope. And so, yeah, it could happen if there's a particularly strong warrior who's one of the priests, and they all were like, yeah, this guy's blessed by Ulrich. We're going to have him. That could happen. But you've got to remember that people are people, and the vast majority will vote for and push forward the ones they know. And most of the older priests, and many of the high priests are the older ones, don't like young upstarts. So generally it would require a reason for a younger one to be voted. And experience it's a part of the cult of Ulrich. It's not a core part. Honor is very important. Martial capability is very important. And young people tend to be martially competent. But there's a lot of politics in the cult of Ulrich, for all many don't realize it. Indeed, it's been led in the modern era by the same family, the Valgirs, for generations. Because they just keep on voting in more Valgirs. Because there's so many Valgir high priests as well. And their supporters. So it's political as well.
Yep, but I am making a note that we'll have a category that will note to that.
Yeah, I've seen a reason why not.
Another Azure Shadow. How about the R. Ulrich that had them expelled from Middenheim?
That'd be a particularly fun story to make, because we know that R. Ulrich was deeply, deeply political and was trying to usurp the ruling family of Middenheim. So there's a good story there already. Now, if we want to use that existing story, pretty good option. But if we'd rather create our own story, then we'd probably want to go elsewhere. What do you prefer?
Once again, that is something that will be one of the options that we'll kind of do, is that we will be looking that we could either do what we did with like Shirian, where we basically took a very, very, very almost custom from the bottom up build, or we could do something that we do with like the elf gods, where we take some general guide rails that have already been set into place, and then we just kind of fill out the missing space, which, to be fair, for the R Ulrichs is still 93% empty space. But yeah, that'll be one of the options we'll look at. Friend or trader, how does our Ulrich get along? There is no my Ulrich. There is only our Ulrich, comrade. there is no my Ulrich here. Karl Franz, Emperor of Mandeville. Is it possible we'll see a modern return of the Howl of Ulrich, the child of Ulrich priestess / witch from the Black Plague books that helps Mandred Skaven Slayer?
Unlikely.
Yeah, I would say that's unfortunately that is quite unlikely, because she actually is a very, very fun character in that book.
Cool character. Yeah.
Biofoot, name suggestion, Fearless Fred Fury.
Nope.
You know, I'm going to say,
nope.
Politely, but respectfully, no. Peter Osborne, how much of a schism in the Ulrican world did the R. Ulrich moving to Talabheim cause? Did people keep following him or begin listening to whoever was watching over the flame at the time? How about Beyond the Empire?
So there was no cult of Ulrich in Middenheim at the time. So the Watchers of the Flame were either one of two things. On one side, it was the local royalty took over. So that means the Elector Count of Middenheim takes over the job and says, we're in control of this now. Alternatively, it would be another cult assigned to protect it. And the most obvious cult, which might strike you as almost blasphemous to even suggest, is the cult of Sigmar. The cult of Sigmar, after all, is the cult of the chap who followed Ulrich. And they would be more than happy to defend what they perceive to be one of the holiest sites in the Empire, because Sigmar passed through that flame, and in some believe that's where he gained his divinity. So this is one of the most sacred sites to Sigmar in the Empire. So I think the obvious answer here is the cult of Sigmar probably looked after it for quite some time. And if we go over to Lawhammer, that's what occurs. The Order of the Silver Flame is one of the chapters of Sigmar. There's inside the Tome of Salvation, they discuss chapters, which are core groups of Sigmarites that look after the holiest sites. And there's a High Capitular in Middenheim. Now, High Capitular is the head of a chapter that looks after one of the greatest, most holy sites. So the High Capitular is clearly the High Capitular of the Silver Flame, which means that he's the leader of the Order of the Silver Flame. And that's what one of the characters inside our game, Lawhammer, comes from, the Order of the Silver Flame. And that was the group that looked after the Silver Flame when Ulrich was kicked out. But when Ulrich returned, they got kicked out in turn. So the obvious answer would be Sigmar.
Mm-hmm. Next we've got Peter Osborne. What's up with the Silver Flame in Solzenmund?
There's another Silver Flame in the Temple of Ulrich in Solzenmund. There you go. That's what's up with it. It's a bit. I never liked it. I remember when it was first added, and I was like, seriously, you don't need to do this. This is not a necessary component for making it work. If you want to build a cool story, do so, but probably create a story that makes it not what it appears to be, rather than Ulrich's just spreading them around. In some respects, it diminishes what they have in Middenheim.
Yeah, if I was going to be trying to make this work, I would maybe have a story about there was some incident where like someone like basically almost took like an Olympic flame from Middenheim over to Solzman, and they've just managed to keep it going
I would
somehow.
not.
But even that, I'm like, I would just get rid of it would be my honest option.
I wouldn't do that either. I would dive into heresy.
Well,
there is nothing, because chaos, after all, rules the further north you go. So I would be looking to mess around with that. That.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tzeentchian scheme.
exactly.
There you go. Yep. I mean, that works perfect. Causes division. It would cause division. That would be a very successful scheme. Stephen Lucas, last session had the idea for a Southern Realm faction, armored rat hunters and wizards at war with Skaven, evolving and counter innovative as new clans were added. Clan Pestilence Return added a modern biowar element. So,
Cool.
yeah, we're going to be doing a stream, not this upcoming Sunday, because this upcoming Sunday is Village, since I was sick this past Sunday, but the Sunday after that, we are going to be doing a stream on Talea, and this is something that I will be angling very heavily to talk about. Of that, one of the things that Games Workshop has never done with Talea, which I find very frustrating and think that needs to be done with them, is that Talea should have almost, especially when you're dealing with like Miragliano, should have almost an obsessive element of countering the Skaven.
We might need to push Talea back to the 24th if we're having our week of Sigmar in the middle. Age of Sigmar, pardon me.
Oh, that's right.
So watch
fine.
this space. We'll decide after this one.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But Talea is coming up. Talea is coming up.
Talea is coming up this month, definitely.
Yeah. And that is something I'm going to be talking a good bit about. And this is one of those things that I think should absolutely be on the shelf without exist. Because when we get into it, we'll talk about the way that GW pitches Talea. Something like this should exist, but they haven't ever really bothered delving into a lot of the military units outside of the Dogs of War book, which was a really long time ago. Gideon Gleeful, as a name suggestion, Gerhard is a reference to Giri, one of the wolves of Odin. The name means strong / brave / hard spear.
Yeah, I get that, but you tend to find that the naming of most of the northern characters tends to, particularly when they're Teutogan, lapse a bit more into medieval style, no, even earlier style names. So they're not often ones that are recognizably, obviously Germanic. They tend to go a bit older. Not always. But that's the Teutogan influence in it all. It's a little bit like High German rather than standard older German. So whilst this is a possibility, I think I would prefer to avoid one that feels obviously and immediately Germanic, particularly because they often take on a name when they become Ulrich, much like many of the cults, or indeed any ruler, you take on a regnal name. Much like King Charles here in the UK didn't need to be called Charles. He could have chosen any name at all, but he chose to keep his name as Charles. And the Pope takes on a different name when he becomes Pope. Exactly the same for Ulrich. They'll often take on different names. So yeah, they tend to try and hark back to previous eras when the cult of Ulrich was strong. And that means older fashioned names are common.
XL1. I'm picturing the R. Ulrich that Marathi put in the Lorebeard, one of the many Lorebeards alt use. Yep.
That was a fun one.
Ricky Chapman, we like the idea of an R. Ulrich who's lost his hand and has an axe hand. Now, maybe he lost it to something like a Beast Investigator, but an axe hand is cool. It is cool. That is
so handy for actually eating, though.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. I feel like that would be a very late development as we are making characters, but let's go. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Carl Franz and Birdman, how big a bribe for let's create a chaos god? Yeah, that would.
We've done quite a bit of chaos, so you'll need to throw a good chunk our way for that one.
Yeah, which good chunk I'll go ahead and translate that is like if it's we'll just say like 100 USD would be lovely. That would be Well, I'll fall for 100. I'll put a chaos god at 100. Okay. I think that has been a suitable length of time to give everyone a chance to realize that we're streaming and we're alive and stuff. So it is time to get started on votes and such, which I think the first vote, which would help determine a lot, is whether do we want to do a completely custom R. Ulrich, or do we want to take one of the R. Ulrichs that has been mentioned?
There's so few, though. There's like 1, 2.
Well,
You're
I've got
almost
a
well
list.
choosing. Have you got a list?
I
Okay,
got
cool.
a list. So we got
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to pick from.
Okay, cool.
If we were going to be filling out one that already exists. I will note, normally I don't do this, but I will note that I personally would rather make a completely brand new one than take one that already exists and fill out. But I do leave it up to the people's discretion.
Yeah, indeed. And because we're all about trying to give equal weight to both sides, if you fancy that you would like to do an hour, in fact, no, I think there might be a better first vote. And that's possibly era. Because if you choose one that's fixed, no, I'm like swithering between both of them. Yeah, no, let's stick with your one. So if you want to, for example, have us define the R. Ulrich that rose up and tried to take control of Mindenheim and have got the entire cult kicked out, then you want to choose a historical Ulrich, because that's one that did exist. But if you want to do something entirely new and build a story that is unique and interesting of your own, then choose original.
Yep. So do we want original or what? Historic?
Carl Franz, you kick ass.
Oh, I accept that bargain. The dark words spoken. Adding to that question, if a wind of magic could theoretically become a god, maybe even awaken to a chaos god, let's say Olgu as the god of secrets,
So
accidentally threw to your last
that is actually written directly into the Tome of Salvation that each one of the winds of magic is a chaos god. So that's not a new piece of lore. That's something that has been suggested in more than one place at different points in Warhammer's history.
Okay, getting this up here. So this one is going to be one of those rare votes where we will have a binary choice.
Yeah.
I am going to put a poll on both, though I am going to be a very big stickler for this stream about I'm not going to be using percentages. I'm going to be using hard numbers. What style? There we go. Original oregano or
I can do YouTube if you're doing both.
Nah, I got it.
You sure? Cool.
Yep.
I'm happy doing nothing. Excellent. I approve of this. I'll just lean back and go, ha ha ha.
And thank you very much for that, Carl Franz. Yeah. I mean, we're happy to do that. That'll be fun. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be a fun thing. Do note though that we've got our schedule relatively full for most of this month, so it might not happen until the start of next month sometime.
Yeah, but it'll be relatively soon.
Yeah, relatively soon.
Okie dokie. So once again, okay, the poll is up on that. The poll is active. Keep in mind that original or good old oregano means that we're going to be building something from scratch. So that means the notable R. Ulrichs, as they're listed, will not be available options. We will basically those will be eras or specific like ballparks that we'll be staying away from. Whereas if you decide to go with historic, then we will be specifically taking up like Vulcan or Krieger or Bardolph or one of those lads, and we will be filling them out and giving them fully developed stories.
Yeah. I'm quite keen to see which direction you're going. At the moment, about half of you voted over on YouTube. So do dive in if you haven't done already and get your opinion shared. The more people that vote, the better the stream is.
Yeah. That being said, this one's looking
it's looking really
one's looking like pretty
one-sided at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, but very one-sided.
That's okay. You know, it is still important to make your voice heard. I think honestly we're just gonna call this one.
Yeah, I think we should call it now. Okay, so it's quite convincingly, and I do mean convincingly, a win for an original R. Ulrich. So we are not going to be building any that have been discussed in any of the books before, but that still gives us an enormous amount of space because we know one of the earliest, we know the very most recent, and we know one or two spread through history, but that's about it, which means we've got free reign to create in pretty much any era at all, except the very, very modern era at the end times, because we know the R Ulrichs from approximately 2500 onwards. And we can't do the very, very earliest in Sigmar's time, but pretty much any other time in between, we're good with. So the next one is, I think, the obvious one. Which era?
Yeah, so this one, me and Andy have how many? What's the max? We have to somehow split this into only 4 options.
Well, but how about then we start off with a nice simple 3 split, which will be early, middle, or later.
Okay, so and then we can get more specific.
Yeah, exactly. Then we can drill down into it. So the first one would be age of, it's age of early. What the fuck are we going to call that? So it's age of Sigmar up to approximately the year 1000. So it's 0 to 1000. The next one's pretty much from 1000 right up to the Empire falling into the Dark Ages. So this is through the time of 2 emperors and 3 emperors in Dark Ages, which is around about 1979. Then the next one will be 1979 through to the modern era, which is the Dark Ages plus post Magnus the Pious time. I
almost wonder if we should scooch it all a little bit, because technically we could have an R. Ulrich that's pre-Sigmar, right?
Oh yeah, that's fair.
So I wonder if we should just do pre-Sigmar is just an entire category.
There's not much to do there though, because there's R. Ulrich doesn't really exist. There's no such thing as much of a chief priest at that point. You'd be basically just making just a random dude who didn't do much. R. Ulrich even in Sigmar's time, it's not really the grand priest of a great cult that we know later. The cults didn't exist in that period. So I don't think that would make a frightfully interesting character unless we were saying this is the one that creates the cult, which, you could do.
Okay, but, people go heavy into early. That's something we could
we can discuss that if we go for early. So it's early, which is around about the age of Sigmar, the age of myth to age of Sigmar. Okay, so
early is like within 1,000 years of Sigmar. Either way,
that sounds good.
Okay, and then Sigmar. Okay, so we got earlier, so I'll put 1,000 plus minus Sigmar. Then we've got mid, which is
about 1,000 to 1979, up to Empress Margretha's time.
1,000
to 2,000, really.
Yeah, 1,000 to 2,000. That works. And then late, which is 2,000, 2,001 plus 500.
Yeah, that sounds good. So if you're looking for someone who is in not necessarily living memory, but is relatively recent, that's the 2000 plus. If you're looking to tell one of the great stories of the Middle Empire when the Empire collapsed into the age of 2 emperors and then the age of 3 emperors, that's your middle era. If you're looking for someone who's foundational in shaping the cult and what it becomes in its later years, then you're looking for early. Do note, though, that the early cult goes downhill for all of its existence, as does kind of the middle. It's one slow downhill decline because the cult of Ulrich is constantly losing influence over the course of time. So no matter which one we're going to be doing, it could be someone who tries to take it up for a bit, but there's going to be a story there, I think.
Yeah, regardless of where we end up, there will be some really, really good stories as we kind of like slowly but surely zero in. The thing that I will add is if we're looking at an early Ulrich, we are basically dealing with a complete, there is nothing here. Like, we've got Vulcan in 63 IC. That's it. He is the only one that is ever mentioned.
Have you put the one up on YouTube?
No, I haven't started them yet.
Oh, you haven't started them? Okay.
Yeah, I was making sure we had elaborated properly.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I'm gonna go ahead and start them now.
Sweet.
When it the 1,000 to 2,000, that is funny enough where the most our Ulrichs are, but that's also kind of one of the most dense eras where there's like a lot of political things happening and a lot of really, really notable great battles happening. So that one has the most R Ulrichs, but there's still only like 6 of them or 7 of them. There's very, very, very few. And then in the modernish eras, we only know about 3 of them. and it's really only literally the last two, and then the one that is around during Magnus the Pious.
Yeah, the late one is the one you pick if you want to have, say, for example, the Vampire Wars. If you want someone who's against vampires, you go late. If you want to have someone that's going up against things like Grom the Paunch, that's late. If you're looking for someone who goes up against something we end up just making up, that's mid. Because the vast majority of the mid stuff for the other various invasions is not really much of a detail, because the Empire, for most of its mid stuff, is internal schisms. A lot of it's schisms. I mean, you've got obviously the occasional orc invasion here or there, but most of those are nowhere near Middenheim. They're almost all in the south or coming from the edges. They're not up near where the heart of the cult is. So the obvious route, if you want any of the more famous battles that they could be involved with, would be the late period.
Yeah, but regardless of which area y'all will pick, there are plenty of things going bump in the Empire.
Oh, damn straight. There is for every single era. Okay, we've currently got about half you voting over on YouTube, and we have a fairly strong lead at the moment for mid. So if you prefer it wasn't mid, go get your vote in now. In second place at the moment, it's pretty much a wash between the other two as it's going up and down. If you would like it to be anything other than mid, now's the time to vote.
Yep, please do get your votes in, because this one is going to determine a lot of the information about our Ulrich for pretty much the rest of the stream. So this one is a very, 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 very big one to get your votes on. While we're waiting, Korinshima, original our Ulrich versus Face Flaya wins. So technically, not to be a stickler, but I'm going to, Face Flaya does not actually exist for us until y'all have somehow managed to pin us down for a Create an Orc War Boss stream, in which case we will technically be at your mercy. But thus far, we have avoided that. He only exists in an alternate reality. But
oh, you freaking dare!
But in the general canon of how we're looking at this, Face Flaya is not a canonical character yet. Gideon, okay, so going with earlier Germanic names, what about Balomar, who was king of the Germanic Marcomanni tribes of the 2nd century AD?
So again, in tone, slightly better, but you tend to find most Warhammer names, at least a chunk of them, take existing names and they go, what would they be in Warhammer? Rather than just porting them over wholesale. Or at least that's what they try to do with more modern writings. If we go back to 1st edition, that wasn't the case. A classic example would be the name Reinhardt, where often the name Reinhardt gets changed into something like Reichardt because of the River Reich rather than the River Rhine, which is not where Reinhardt comes from a name. Doesn't matter. The writers went, I'll just replace that. That'll do. Reichardt has now become a name.
So you're on the right road. We just gotta Warhammerify it up. So.
Plus, it's also worth noting that we very rarely name any of the characters when we do a create stream, so that you can name them according to your own personal preferences out there.
Amnes in Fire. $10 bribe towards the Create a War Boss stream for Face Flaya. Do I want to deal with Face Flaya?
Amazon Fire, you're gonna have to do a lot more than $10 for us to do that.
I mean, I'll allow y'all to pull it. But
it's gonna have to be high if you're pulling it though, rather than just a one-off.
Yeah, because it's a pull though. I'm gonna be very cruel and I'm gonna be mean. And I'm gonna say, how badly do I not want to deal with Face Flaya amidst all the other stuff we have to deal with? So y'all can work together. I'll keep track over the course of the next however long it takes to get there. But I'm gonna say $500 for Face Flaya. I'm gonna say $500. Yeah, we'll just do Face Flaya. Fuck it.
Yeah, it won't even be a Create Your War Boss stream. It'll be Create Face Flaya stream. Yep. Holy crap. I can't believe we're possibly heading towards that.
Okay, I think we are good to call it.
We can call that one. It looks like we've got ourselves over on YouTube at least. It's mid-era, so 1,000 to 2,000. What's over on Twitch?
Twitch, it was very, very split, so I don't think it's going to change the vote.
What was the split, just so that we've got a general idea there?
It was slightly ahead on Oh, did I really write it like that? That's so weird. Why did I put mid, early, late instead? Oh, I didn't. It put them in who won order. I was like, what? Confused myself for a second. Early was slightly ahead on Twitch.
Oh, interesting.
Then mid, then late, I believe.
You can't pay me enough. Schultz, I'm bringing it up now. Yeah, no.
Well, okay, hold on.
Unless we did a create a face flare stream, then I might end up falling in love with it. It might happen if that happened, actually,
yeah,
Sean Schultz.
There you go.
It might happen.
So technically, he asked about face layer, but in which I would say pleasure barge. the pleasure barge.
Oh fuck! Yeah, face layer. Well, I missed that entirely.
Yeah, that goes right up there next to anal Ulrich. Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're going for the mid era. So this is from the point where the Temple of Sigmar is built in Altdorf. So that's 1000 IC, all the way through to the Empire, Sigmar's Empire, completely collapsing in 1979 with the rise of Empress Margrethe and all the troubles that she brought with her. So we have a big area to deal with here. Loosely, we've got the initial part, which is the Empire whole. Then we have the Age of Two Emperors, which is the Empire split in two. On one side, we've got the Attilian emperors. On the other side, we have the electoral emperors that are based over in the west. So it's west versus east. And during the time of Attilia, most of the Ulrichs are in Talapheim, not Middenheim. And then from there, we go to the Age of Three Emperors. During the Age of Three Emperors, the Wolf Emperor up in the north gets this Cult of Sigmar back up into good old Middenheim. And we have ourselves our Ulrichs up there from that point onwards, right through to 1979 when it all goes boom. So there's three, I think, very obvious eras we could choose from. Does that seem fair?
Yes, and some other notes I want to include because I know a lot of people in the stream really like their kind of, well, what major events can I try and get us close to of that? So going from kind of the earlier like 300-ish years up to the like I'll do them in like 300 to 350 year kind of chunks. So in the earliest stuff, we'll be looking at things like the halflings get admitted into the Empire, which probably won't involve our Ulrich a ton, but he might be slightly involved in it. You do, of course, have the Skaven Wars, which are in the early area. Though I will though I will note that we will have to be cautious about how we deal with that because there is already a pre-established our Ulrich during the Black Plague lore.
So we won't be doing that. So if you choose early, we will not be doing the Skaven Wars because that's covered in other books.
Yeah. But an event that if we do early, we very likely would end up having our Ulrich deal with is the destruction of the Drakwold province, where the Drakwold province collapses and there's a big...
Again, that's Black Plague. There's not really much to cover with that. It all gets divided up and there's hardly anyone left alive afterwards.
Well, yeah, I mean the politicalness of the dividing up and the Empire like literally cannibalizing itself amidst like some other beastmen stuff. Because weirdly enough, the electric count of the Drakwold gets killed by a beastman, not a Skaven, despite the fact that it happens around the Skaven Wars. He actually dies right before the Skaven Wars, which is weird. But we've got the Age of Three Emperors, which takes us more into the mid-era of this general ballpark. In the mid-era, we also deal with things like the rampage of Gothor the Beast Lord, which happened very close to Middenheim. There was some really, really nasty beastman shit that happened during Gothor's rampage, which would be that mid-ish era. And then in the late-ish era, this is very far away from our Ulrich, but it would be like something we would discuss a bit. We have Gorbad, which when Gorbad was defeated at Altdorf, he was more stalled. The big thing that happened, if you've watched our Gorbad stream, is that a lot of Gorbad's army just kind of wandered off, but that meant that Greenskins kind of attacked everywhere else in the Empire, so we would be dealing with a lot of Greenskin stuff. And we also, at the very end of the late era, do have the destruction of Mordheim, which led to a lot of political shenanigans, because Middenheim and our...
That's 1999, though. So
yeah,
you won't...
It is
that's modern era. because it's the year 2000 onwards you deal with more time. So we can't do more time because they didn't really choose the more time option. It's also worth noting that if you go for the mid-era, so we're right in the middle, you also have the potential for the Crusades, which the
Crusades!
The Crusades, the White Wolves took part in that. And there's an entire story, which is almost certain to be rewritten by the old world, concerning what happens with the Crusades. So that's another relatively obvious choice. Worth noting, though, that during the time of two emperors, so that's before the empire, not the first section, that's the mid-section, so the two emperor era, there was a lot of wars between Talabheim and the rest of the empire, and Ulrich was mostly on the side of Talabheim, so that's worth looking at. You end up with a very different form. If we go with the late era, there was a ton of wars with the north, the wolf emperors fighting the electoral emperors down in the south, with Reichland and Westerland and Nuln and Visenland frequently going to war with the north because they did not like the idea that the wolf emperors declared themselves independent from the empire. So we've got lots of different types of potential battles in every era. So the first era is when the empire's still together, and you'll probably be dealing with, external enemies trying to take it down. The next era, your age of two emperors, is broadly when the Crusades happen. It's when Ulrich is probably in Talabheim, and there's a lot of war in terms of civil war going on. And the last era is broadly the Wolf Emperor's time, the age of three emperors, where everyone's at war with each other and externals as well. So there's so many different options here. I love them all for different reasons.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to...
I just go empire. I'd say age of one emperors, age of two emperors, age of three emperors.
That works.
Yeah. So one emperor means dealing with outsiders. Two emperors means civil wars and outsiders. Three emperors means for a shed load of civil wars. If you want Talabheim for the Ulrich base, that's two emperors. If you want Middenheim, it's the one emperor, the three emperors. If you want the Crusades, that's the time of two emperors. There's lots of different options here.
Yeah.
If you want the orcs coming from the south, that's three emperors.
We will give y'all a nice couple of minutes to vote. So if you're sitting there and you're at the chat and you're like, oh, I really want this thing, feel free to ask for clarification on like, hey, which one do I need to vote for if I want this event? And me and Andy will be happy to tell you which one you should be voting for in that case. So I'm going to give y'all like a good hefty amount of time on this one, and we'll just kind of hang out and chat.
Sounds good.
All right, the polls are up. Okay, so then let me get caught up with super chats real quick. Carl Frozzy, Chaos God of the Wall, fake flyer. Just kidding. There's so many alternate versions of this man. Zur Shadow, ideas 1152 to 1359, Age of Wars, 1450 to 1550, Great Crusade versus Sultan Jafar, who probably doesn't exist anymore. We just know him as the Great Sultan now. But at least they're keeping the Crusades. That I'm happy with at least. Post two emperors, Talabheim Ulrich, and then I think you meant 1525 to 1528, not 2528. Go Thor, the reign of 1,000 years.
He's around for a long time.
Four face flat.
That's $5 added onto the list.
Yeah. All right, get your votes in. Let's see. Looking for some other comments I'm going to kind of grab out here. What is this? Let's see. Oh, which one would I want to vote if I wanted to drive the Frontiers?
You do that. It's already passed. The core drive of the Frontiers happened beforehand. So we're talking the first 1,000 years is when they were really pushing. Worth noting, though, that if you want to have the war that happens as the Gospodars come flying down into the empire and go to war with all of the eastern side, then you're choosing the middle era because that happens 1,000 years ago. So that's around about the 1500s. And it's an enormous event. And our Ulrich is in Talabheim at this point. So when it comes down, we could have an Ulrich that's dealing with the invasion of the Gospodars. It's worth noting, they lose hard. The Gospodars take half of the Ottoman Empire's territory during that time.
Gothor and the Crusades, those would be two different ones because Gothor is late, Crusades is middle. Worth keeping in. Oh wait, no. Gothor is.
It's sort of middle.
Yeah, so I mean, we could put that in both if we really wanted to.
Yeah. The problem with Age of 3 Empires is it's sort of a middle too late because it's quite a long time, but it gives us more than enough to play with.
Lorebeards, are there other R's like R tall or R more?
No, it's sourced from Teutogan or Teutognan, depending on your scholastic preference, which is the language of the Teutogans, and it directly comes from that. So you won't find any of the other groups doing the same thing because, well, that's not right. They don't speak Teutogan. If you go down to, for example, Tal, they speak Telutan. So they use Telutan, and they've got their own version.
Arbal.
Yes, Arbal almost certainly means son of Baal.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Arbal means son of Baal. And it's a thing. So if you go down to Talapime, the Electric Count of Talapime has got an equivalent title, okay, which is like Urtal or something like that. I'll need to go check it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. In fact, I'm going to go check it up while I do it.
Yeah, please do get your votes in, folks. Get your votes in. Please. Get those all in there sooner rather than later.
Elector counts.
Oh my God, Carl Franz. If there's no R more, then where is my chest plate from?
Okay, so it's Ludatal, which means shield of Tal, and Gratal, which means beloved of Tal, and they both come from Telutan. Where if you go for the ones that are derived from Teutogan, you get R Ulrich, which means son of Ulrich, and you get Ban Ulrich, which means beloved of Ulrich.
XL1, R Ulrich versus Ice Witches. You'd be looking for the mid era if you wanted them to throw down with the Ice Witches.
It's a nasty one.
Yes, it is, because it goes very, very poorly for them. Very, very poorly for them. Let me look how these are going. Time's almost up. Time is almost. I gave them 5 minutes.
It's looking pretty definitive, though. We've now got 92. We've got over we've got a fair chunk of votes in there. I think we can call that.
Yeah, the Twitch one just finished. It is a definitive mid-era Age of 2 Emperors in both chats.
Okay, so Age of 2 Emperors leading into the early Age of 3 Emperors, because there's a bit of crossover there. Yeah, I'd say there's a few obvious events we can call out. One is the invasion of the Gospodars. One is the Great Crusades. Any other ones we want to pull out? Gorthor, perhaps, from that time?
Yeah, we can say Gothor because that's kind of at the end.
That'd do for that time. Or alternatively, dealing with the civil wars, perhaps. Does that seem like 4 decent choices?
Yes. So this is kind of what we're looking at here is going to be what is going to be kind of the major defining crises of this R. Ulrich's life. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yeah. What's the major defining one? And we're going to tie R. Ulrich to an important event.
Yeah, and once we've kind of got this narrowed down, this is when we'll start to work on the person, and there's going to be a lot more that gets added to them. This isn't going to be the only thing they get up to. This is just going to be what's the major defining thing. Like when history brings them up, what's usually the thing that they get wrapped up with when people are talking about them. What major crisis defines our R. Ulrich? Here we go. So we've got in order. So we've got the Civil War. We've got Gothor the Beast Lord. The Crusades.
Just seeing if there's any other ones there that I'd jump on. They're all mostly fine.
And the Gospodar invasion. I'll put
so Gospodar's in 1520. So it'd be right near there. It's perfect.
Okay. And then copy, go to Twitch,
Nice.
/poll. But hopefully, while I'm typing this up here, we do hope everyone out there is having a lovely day. In fact, I'll even go so far as to ask everyone in the community, because we're kind of having just a nice, chill, good time here while I'm getting these polls up. How is everyone doing today? What are y'all up to? How is life?
Yeah, drop it down in the chat.
Yeah. All right. Polls are live. Vote for your preferred crises.
Crises time. So, yeah, if you want the Crusades, you know what to do. If you want to have the Gospodars coming in and swooping in at the side, you know what to do. The Crusades take place over the time of 2 and 3 emperors. So we'll be dealing with some of the early Crusades, not the later Crusades, if we were doing this. If we go with the Gospodars, then that happens right at the tail end, but entirely within the age of 2 emperors. And then after Kislev is founded, the age of 3 emperors almost begins just like a decade or so after that. So you can almost see the knock-on effect of losing almost half their territory, really weakened, massively weakened the Ottomans. So if you want to deal with that one, that's the era we'll be dealing with. It'll be the whole story of the arrival of the Gospodars and the weakening of the Ottilians and the return of the cult of Ulrich back to... And in fact, it's quite likely our Ulrich might die if that was the case, because a new Ulrich comes in and moves the cult and makes a deal. Controversially makes a huge deal. We'd be dealing with one of the biggest stories in the cult of Ulrich if we go for the Gospodars. If we go for the Crusades, we're just making something up, because there is no story there at all, other than the White Wolves, and only some of them went south, but the Emperor forbid it from happening. And we'll be dealing with both the Ottoman Emperor and the Electoral Emperor, both of whom forbid anyone to go. So if he goes, for example, then we've got a bit of a story there. There's not much for the Crusades to go on. We'll have to make up a story, basically. There's a lot to work with over on the Gospodar side. There's more actual evidence of what was going on at the time with that one. So there's more of a story we can play with. The other 2 options are, because I wouldn't mind going through all of them.
Yeah, with Gothor, we are dealing with a very northern focused storyline of between Midland and Hochland, and how both of them get ravaged a lot by beastmen. We are dealing with the very notable Elector Count of Hochland at the time, who was noted as being an absolute bastard. Like, he was so hated that many people in the Empire considered that it wouldn't necessarily, like, when he fought Gothor, it was considered like a battle of 2 evils. He was so heavily disliked. But he was very, very good at what he did. Like, he was very efficient as an Elector Count, but he was despised for his cruelty.
Do you want to know one of the funniest things?
Huh.
In at least one version of the background, there is no Hochland at that point.
Which is crazy, because the whole point of Gothor is his duel with that guy.
Yeah, I know. There was no Elector Count because Hochland had been completely defeated by Attilia and had been just made part of Talabheim. In the same way that in the current modern version of the Enemy Within, Hochland is just a province, not a grand province.
I mean,
there's no Elector Count.
That'd be an easy way to tie that in, because he ends up dying when he fights Gothor. So it could be that after his death, they're so crippled by the invasion, maybe then they get absorbed by the Attilian Empire.
So I would think it's worth noting that it's super close between the Crusades and Gospodar Invasion at the moment on YouTube.
I would like to add this. If you want for us to talk about a tragic tale, if you prefer tragedies, then you're probably going to want to lean on the Gospodar side.
If fair.
You're probably wanting like more of an epic, then you probably want to lean a little bit more on the Araby Crusade side.
Yeah. One is going to be a big, basically our Ulrich going against everything that he has promised to do. And the other one's going to be our Ulrich trying to face off against the hordes of chaos as they perceive it, because they see the Gospodars are exactly that. They're a rampaging army of arriving Northmen and trying to cope with that. They're 2 very different versions.
Did anyone on Twitch catch the percentages? I thought I caught them, and then I literally turned over a second too late.
I should have had Twitch open. Sorry, I don't have that one.
I don't know if any of the mods that were watching Twitch. Actually, Hawk, if you're not doing anything, if you want to be in charge of Twitch polls, that would actually make my life easier. Because I am bad about looking over there. Because y'all are like neck and neck on this.
Yeah, it's super close.
I almost wonder actually if we should have, because this is like a pretty significant vote. I wonder if we should have a runoff vote to let the people that voted Gothor and Civil War get in on that. It might
be a good way to split it. That also means we don't need to worry too much about missing the
let's do it that way. Let's do it that way. So let's go ahead and end the poll. Most of y'all voted. Thank you very much for your votes. We're gonna have a runoff. That also gives Andy a chance to wax lyrical about the advantages of both for a moment.
Yeah. Let me just grab up the dates, because as I recall, the Gospodars are in 1497 when the Great Conquest starts. I'm just going to go check it up on my timeline. Yeah, 1497 through to 1524. Okay, so 1497 is, in terms of its date, the tail end of the age of two emperors, through to 1524. 1524 it's only 25 years later we hit the age of three emperors. The Crusades go right through it, so we could end up doing both, possibly.
Could we?
Yeah, I think we could, because the Crusades go, as I recall, from about 15. I'm going to go check it up because I can't remember the actual date, and I don't have it set on my timeline here. It's annoying.
Go speeders. It's a night goblin invasion. The ghost spider invasion. Please no giant spider invasion of in time. It's probably happened at least once. Oh, people are very excited at the idea of both. People are very excited.
Okay, so 1448 is the first Great Crusade. 1459 is the second. So let's maybe check my time. So that is pretty close. The third one is 1475, and the fifth is in 1501. So we can do almost, but not quite, a crossover. We can't cross over. One is earlier and completes and finishes earlier. There is no crossover, which means your vote really matters.
Yeah, because one of the things that's worth noting is that...
Have you put up a second poll?
No, I'm about to.
Okay, cool.
One of the things that's worth adding... I'm tempted to do something really sinister here.
Sinister.
So chat, would y'all be interested in a dark deal?
A dark deal
that I could invoke that would make Andy upset because it makes our job a lot harder.
Here we go.
I'm willing to do a dark deal here. So by the dates as they exist, it would be really, 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 really difficult, but not technically impossible to have an R. Ulrich that overlaps and gets both. But it would have to be an R. Ulrich that was in his position for a unusually long period of time. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, if we go for the last one, so the last Crusade is in 1501. I mean, it's not that long. Kislev is founded in 1524, so that's 25 years. You could get a crossover there. So you could have someone who did something down in the Great Crusades, and then in his later years is dealing with the arrival of the Gospodars.
Yeah. So So let's do this, because it's gonna be a rather meticulous bit of an affair here. That would be easier if we just avoided, and more accurate if we avoided. If you want both, if someone just throws let's say a $50 super chat. So like,
it's a small one.
Purple. It has to be one singular one. If it's a purple or a red one, I'll let you have it. I'll let you have it. We'll make it work.
Other than that, put up the vote so we can have the vote as well, just in case nobody does that.
Yes. I will put up the vote right now. that the vote is you must choose.
Mr. Mike, I loved your comment. It made me
Rich
laugh.
people save us.
Yeah, that genuinely. Oh, cripes! Here we go.
Okay.
You don't need to do the vote.
Oh, I don't.
No.
Oh, both.
The exiled one. It has happened.
Okay, so the reason, and I want to be clear, the reason I made it small, I was gonna make it a lot bigger, but then Andy mentioned that we could actually kind of cheese it a little bit, of that we can have an R. Ulrich who, when he's younger, when he's maybe a Grand Master, he participates in the Last Crusade. And then after he comes back from the Crusade, he becomes our Ulrich. But we're getting a little bit of a shape of a life here. We're getting a shape of a life. Because I don't think we need to deal with him being our Ulrich the entire time. I think we can have that before he's our Ulrich. Maybe the defining thing that makes it where all of the other Ulrichans vote for him to become our Ulrich is his success in the last leg of the Crusade.
Okay, so we're doing the last leg of the Crusade, as in the last major push. Then we're dealing with the liberation of Sartosa, which is pretty cool. Because Sartosa in 1501 is liberated from Sultan Jafar, if we go with the Disney reference, by the Grand Sultan, and is finally pushed out of Sartosa completely. And that's one of the bigger defeats before they then head down into the south. So that's quite an important one. That's also when this Tilian Sea is completely cleared of corsairs, all the Arabian corsairs. So it's both a naval victory and a land victory. But because it's over in Sartosa, it's largely a naval one for your wolves of the sea, rather than necessarily just your wolves on the horse, so to speak.
I will say, just for my curiosity, chat, go ahead and make sure you vote on the actual YouTube poll. Make sure, and I'll go ahead and put it up on Twitch as well, real quick. But do actually vote on this, just for my curiosity for a moment. Because remind me when the other 3 Crusades are year-wise.
So it's not so much there are 3 other Crusades per se. It's
or the 3 other big.
Yeah, the Crusades start all the way back in 48. So it's a long time ago. 1448 is when it all starts, and Araby slams up into the old world, and a great call for help is made, and the Empire ignores it. They're like, fuck you. We've got our own problems. There's 2 emperors. We've got civil war issues. Everything's fucked up here. Piss off. And nobles, knightly orders, individuals from across the old world went, no, this is unacceptable. We've got to help. And individuals went down. It's worth noting that it is marked that the cults also did not go. Which suggests that our Ulrich doesn't go. But as a young man, he absolutely could go.
Oh, man, I just had a brain fart. There we go. There you go, Twitch. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave y'all out. There you go. Y'all have
there you go.
Okay, so that actually makes sense then, because that means we're ending up with a more canonical character, because chat would have definitely wanted him to be like, we're going. But the idea that he as an individual goes and participates in some part of the crusade, it's likely he probably, I mean, considering most R. Ulrichs take over probably when they're about their 50s or 60s?
50s, 60s, yeah.
So if we do that, then his prime age...
So like 30, 40 years earlier when he's in his early 20s. So relatively newly initiated into the cult of Ulrich, has become a white wolf, and joins those that went down south. You've got to remember, the Empire specifically does not join up, but the King of Britannia does. He does a big, massive, let's go kick in, everyone down there, calls a crusade and drags people from across the old world to join it. So it's Britannia that's largely the leaders of that. But there are so many imperial nobles and imperial knightly order individuals who think that it's the right thing to do, so they go as well.
Yeah, I actually really like this thing, because this immediately kind of tells us a notable character aspect about our Ulrich, where this is a man who didn't just sit by and do as the cult explicitly said. This is a man who took up his cavalry hammer or his axe or whatever it may be and went off as more of an individual or as a very small knot of brothers or Ulrichans and said, no, fuck it. Ulrich says that we go fight against these kinds of things. We're going to go fight.
Yeah. I quite like that as a setup. So if we can, I mean, how old? Let's go through where's my dates? Let's open my document. So if Kislev's founded 1524, so we want him to be alive then, probably in his 80s. If we dial him back 60 years before that, that drops us back to what? 24, so 60, so that's 35 years before that. That's my brain is just frazzling. 65? 1565? 1465, pardon me. 1465 is 15 years into the war. And we haven't been 95. The arrival of Kislev, he'd be old. I'm not so sure that. I mean, he could be super, super old. I mean, some of them are. He could be in his 90s by the time that occurs, which means he could be there right at the beginning of the Crusades.
So I think we could kind of tie that into our next vote of how old exactly do we want him to be, and that kind of determines what he got to actually do within the Crusades. Because if we make it where he's more reasonably aged for the Gospodar invasion, where he's like in his 70s or 60s,
which I think would be perfect in terms of the normal story, but we might want to make someone who's older. That's really up to yourselves. It's also worth noting that with 5 minutes in and a good chunk of you having voted over on YouTube, it's quite clearly a win for the Gospodars as the core focus.
And I would say that does suggest the idea that I think that leaves us with an R. Ulrich with a bit more of a reasonable age. If we want that, the major defining crisis of his life is not his actions in the Crusades.
He joined the Crusades because they were ongoing for decades, and he joined the Crusades and went down. And later on in his life, when he takes on the mantle of R. Ulrich, or just High Priest of somewhere or another, he is part of the defense against the Gospodars.
Even participating in the later half even of the Crusades, it still would have had him potentially fighting in Araby. It would have had him fighting in Sartosa. He probably would have missed the early fighting in Estalia and Talea. But he would have been there for honestly the ugliest part of the Crusades.
I mean, none of the Crusades were particularly good,
but we are going to give y'all a vote on his age. If you're like, no, hell bent, I want him to be there for the whole fucking thing, we will try to make an ancient R. Ulrich work. It's gonna change the story in an interesting way, and I wouldn't recommend it. My personal recommendation is going to be for more of a so I'm thinking of so I think we're going to do the vote for when does he become R. Ulrich, might be the way we were, or how old is he for the Gospodars, maybe?
Yeah, how old do we want him to be when the Gospodars hit? And I'd say something like 50s to 60s, 60s to 70s, then 80s plus.
Okay, so we've got...
no, we have to go 90s plus. So we need to have a whole vote for 90s. So 50s, 60s, so maybe 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s when he becomes Ulrich. So we won't have him be too young because we've got a relatively broad story we want to include.
Okay, so his
50s,
50s,
60s, 70s, 80s.
60s, 70s, 80s.
And 80s. If you want him to be a vital part of the defense against the onrushing and extraordinary might of the Gospodars, then you want him in his 50s. If you want him to be slowly aging out, 60s. You want him to be ridiculously pensioner aged, so we're already hitting our 70s now. If you want him to be genuinely an old man, possibly in a wheelchair, then we're dealing with the 90s. That's an interesting mix.
Yeah, so what I'm going to say here is that what we're gonna do is, and once again, we'll leave it open for y'all to do some manipulations and stuff, because I could kind of see how some of y'all are trying to angle the story, but I'm not gonna make it easy for you, because what some of y'all are leaning towards is extremely impractical. of if the younger this R. Ulrich is, the more active he is going to be in the story of the Gospodari invasion of Gospodarini. Sorry. If you are going, if you're going for the super duper duper elderly R. Ulrich, where he lived the prime of his life in the Crusades, then he is going to have more of a political relationship with the Gospodari invasion that will lead to he's going to die during it. But he
I think we can sum up a little bit. If you go with super old age, okay, he's not going to be vital. He's not going to be blessed by Ulrich and sitting on the front line. He's going to be off the front line and will probably die on the front line the only time he goes to war. So you're building a tragedy, which is kind of fun. I'm not against that idea. I think it's pretty cool. But if you want to have an R. Ulrich who's doing all sorts of shit all over the theater of war, then you need to have one who is younger, but not necessarily the youngest. There's different ways of handling it.
Yeah, but if collectively you have to specify in your super chat that it is for this. You have to specify. If y'all collectively decide to throw $100 at it, maybe there's something strange about this R. Ulrich. Maybe he's a little unique. Maybe there's something about him that allows him to be vital in his old age. But only if you do $100 collectively as a super chat. You have to specify. The vote is up. The poll is up.
Interesting. We'll see where it goes, eh?
Yeah. Who could say? Maybe there's something about him. Maybe he's particularly blessed, or maybe something happened to him down in Araby when he was plundering a tomb of the Tomb Kings. Who could say? Who could say?
I think the poll's not quite right. We need him in his 90s.
Oh, well then...
Not 80s. He's got to be in his 90s to reach the end. If he
assume that 80 says 90s. I'm just going to put it that way. Assume 80 says 90s.
Yeah, it's slightly off in that regard, yeah. Yeah, in fact, all of them are slightly off. If you're choosing 50s, it's probably going to end up being closer to 59-60. If you're choosing 60s, it's going to be like 69-70.
Add 10 to each one.
If you're choosing 70s, it's 79-80. It's on the cusp. And if you're choosing 80s, it's like 89-90. He's got to be pretty freaking old if he's going to get the entire lot in.
Yeah. Okay. I need to get caught up on
vote. I'm enjoying
a bunch
these
of super chats that came in earlier that we missed because we were just busy yapping the entire time.
Yep.
Boo, Super Orlock, thank you so much for being a member for 5 months. Glad to be here to build our
Thank you.
Yes,
you kick-ass Super Orlock.
That is going to be his code name for the rest of the stream.
Okay, so quite a few people would like to change their vote. I think that's fair.
Okay. I'll hold on. I'll
we're going to be fair in this one because we screwed up here. I think it's quite important that we definitely get this clear, because if he's going to survive all the way through, he's got to be in his 90s at the end.
Yeah, I'll fix it. I'm fixing it right now.
So we'll fix it right now. At the moment, 60s/70s was in the lead over on. I can't see anything. It's over on Twitch. It's 60s as well. So at the moment, 60s/70s is currently in the lead. We'll see what that turns into when we rebuild it. Can I just finish the Twitch one?
No, that one has to run out.
It's just got to run out itself, doesn't it? Yeah, it'll be finished in a moment.
80 to 89 and then 90 plus. There. So I've got 60. Oops. Good thing I checked.
I'd say possibly 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So we could play around with the 50s, 60s on the young side.
Okay, that's okay. That works. So the younger one will give a broader brushstroke. Okay. So I've got 50 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, 90 plus.
I think you meant 50 to 69, dude.
That's what I meant. That's what I typed. I may not have said it, but that is what I typed. my tongue auto-corrected for some reason. Okay. That poll is now live.
I'm such a child.
Korishima, Crisis, fighting a secret war against the fishermen. We're all doing that every day. Every day of our lives, we're fighting secret wars against the fishermen. Getting gleeful. So there's a high chance.
Have we got up on Twitch as well?
Oh, now I can. I was waiting for the other one to finish.
Yeah.
Okay. What age?
while you're doing that one. So there's a high chance that Games Workshop would just make them the same as modern day. But what would the Ottoman army be like at this time? I imagine more similar to modern Britannia, but slightly less cavalry. So this is covered. And there's some discussion about some of the early battles that were done by Queen Attilia. I've drawn a picture of her, believe it or not, for Games Workshop some time ago. She didn't look that much different to Queen Elizabeth in her own way. So if you know Queen Elizabeth I of the UK, big ginger-haired monarch, that was the general idea that they went with for Attilia I. And the armies were mostly what you'd expect for an empire army, but instead of guns, it was bows. And that was what they went with. You can find that in Empire at War. An entire battle is explained in there, and the forces that she used and deployed were marked there. Yeah, it was covered already.
Mike Solomon, I think. Idea: Slaanesh absorbed Astario, claiming elf kind. I wouldn't run with this because elven souls are already deeply at risk of Slaanesh's particular obsession with them way before Nakari catches up with Astario.
Yeah.
Way before. Because Astario's death happens near the end of the Cataclysm. Carl Franz, heresy potential. Reynold is an elemental of Olgu, and this is my last contribution to the Great Office Fund, so Andy doesn't have to sell Marienburg. Well, thank God that Andy can hold on to Marienburg.
Oh, holy moly. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently in the midst of a £100,000 upgrade to my house. £100,000.
The madman.
Yeah, we've remortgaged our house, and quite a few people over on the Lawhammer side have asked me to do some sort of equivalent of GoFundMe or something like that, and I'm considering it purely because it's £100,000.
You should.
So much money. Yeah, we're actually crying just a little bit when we were.
In fact, he's going to. He's just figuring how he's going to do it, but he's going to is the answer.
Probably going to. I just don't like. I mean, GoFundMe's wrong because that's normally for charity, and it's not a charity. It's me building my own.
Please, it's
thing.
For Americans to pay their health care. You could use it for building an office.
It doesn't feel right using GoFundMe at all.
No,
it feels
it's
wrong.
Fine.
It just feels wrong. It's GoFundMe for goodness sake. It's not.
People, they're adults. They can spend their money on whatever they want to spend it on.
Yeah, I just want to bring up this one. Oh, remortgage is never good. Yeah, we know. Oh, the amount of money that we now have to pay per month for our mortgage. Oh, man. I just don't want to think about it. Let's just move on.
Demographics of Kislev versus Empire shortly pre-Great War Against Chaos.
Okay, so before the Great War Against Chaos, I'm not sure what you're looking for in terms of demographics, because there's lots of different things that demographics could cover. It could just be hard numbers. It could be the composition of their armies and exactly what they're composed of, how many troops they can bring to bear, how many different stanistas and rotas do they have that they can pull on over on the Kislev side in comparison to the absolutely fractured empire and what that pulled together. It's a really difficult question to answer with any sort of certainty. So why don't you repitch that one? I'll look out and I'll try to make sure that we get it. Repitch that one with a nice clean, what numbers are you looking for?
Yep. Please get your votes in, by the way. Get your votes in. We have a vote up. Only about like a third of y'all have voted. So please do get your votes in. A little over a third, actually. But
a little over a third. At the moment, it's a clear 50-69, dude, that's currently winning. If you'd like it to be different, you need to vote now or it won't be.
Mm-hmm. Boop, Carl Franz. I lied. What's stronger, a vampire or Chaos Lord? So like a vampire lord or a chaos lord. That one.
I mean, stronger, vampire. Stronger. If we're sticking to just strength, vampire. Vampires, admittedly, are as variable as a variable thing, but so to a degree are chaos lords. If we just go with stats, chaos lords, strength 5, vampires more. Typically. Vampire Lord, but it's just a classic vampire. Chaos Lord will eat him for breakfast. It's all over the place there.
Yep.
But just pure strength, vampire.
Is time. So both chats rather overwhelmingly, there was a noble effort by the 90+ crowd, but rather overwhelmingly, we got the youngest option of 50-69.
Okay, so that's how old he's going to be when the Gospodar invasion happens. So let's pull out our year so we know exactly when that is. So they arrive in, let me just pull it up. Do I have it right in front of me? I've only got when they take it was 1524. So let me just pull back because I've got it on my other doc. I hope. There it is. So they arrive in 1497 when they arrive, and by 1524 they've got it all. So in 1497 he can be any age, basically 50 through to 69, and by the end of that war, that's 1524, he's very likely dead or is about to die. So we get an idea there. So he could have arrived, say, in his 50s and then dies in his 70s, if we wish. Or we could have him in his 60s and he dies possibly even in his 80s. But he is, because of the choices we've made, going to be on the front line. Now, I'm also going to address one thing that's been coming up quite a lot in the chat, and that's the classic, make him a son of Ulrich, a werewolf. No, unless. And I say no because the cult of Ulrich is opposed to this. Massively. They believe that the sons of Ulrich and werewolves and all of the other werewolf types are heretical chaos creatures. They do not believe that they are, broadly speaking, the children of Ulrich. Or at least that's what the case is in the modern era. Now, that doesn't need to be the case for this individual. We could go down a different route, but my deep inclination is to say that it is that. This is one where I am very rarely going to say, if you want us to tell a different story, you will have to bribe us. That's not one up for a vote because that's going against what the cult wants. And if we're doing that, we're telling a very different story because we're probably going to tell the story of the downfall of the children of Ulrich and how they are perceived to be a curse and not perceived to be the true children of Ulrich. And that would be almost the story of what this individual represents.
Yeah, because the children of Ulrich, even by this point, it's already been very well established in the canon, are like super not cool with the cult. Of that during the Skaven Wars, you had the whole incident where there was a child of Ulrich fighting alongside the Emperor himself, who was from Middenheim. So if anything, you think that would have improved relations. But that whole scenario, there is a priest of Ulrich character that's with them that does not like her at all. But
it's worth noting, doesn't go out to kill her. It's not the point where it's it's absolute antipathy. If we did do something like this, it would be the part that turns it to proper antipathy. Whatever this R. Ulrich does, the failures or perhaps the defeats or perhaps what happens when they go against Mishka and her ridiculous horde of Gospodars completely changes the narrative from being negative to being apostate. Negative to apostate is pretty big.
Yep. So before we go any further, we'll do a linger there of Andy, if you had to stick a number on such a crazy heretical thing, what would that number be?
I don't know. I'm rubbish at this bit. This is your province.
$100. Anyway.
Okay, $100 sounds good. Okay, so if anyone does desperately want that, I'm willing to settle on this story because I think an interesting story can be told. We can absolutely make this one work. But I think that if we're doing this, we are telling a heretical story. And by that I mean one that the cult won't accept is true. But that doesn't mean it isn't true. This would be the story of the son of Ulrich that managed to gain control of the cult. And then when in control of the cult, the Gospodar invasion happened and something else happens.
Somebody asked for the reason those are there is because these are road bumps we're trying to avoid.
Yep.
And also
we 100% quite happily say, look,
happily to not have them happen.
We'll do it, but we're happy not to do it because we can do other things. So how about we dive into the obvious first question while people are mulling that and decide the crusade journey that he has, possibly deciding where he comes from.
So actually, do we want to take this point to take a bit of step back from the year and figure out because I know we discussed it's a possibility earlier, even though it'd be a little unusual. Did we want to have the sex of our Ulrich vote? Because someone did ask about that at the very start of the stream.
Let's say where from first, then sex, because I'm deciding what I think about sex, and I haven't come up with what I think is a good response to that yet. So, where from? The obvious one would be Middenland, Talbot clan.
Okay, so this is where our Ulrich is born.
Born, yeah. Okay, so our Ulrich's almost always pure-born Teutogen. So that's someone who can trace their bloodline directly to the Teutogens that settled in Middenland, but doesn't mean they were born in Middenland. So a lot of pure-blooded Teutogens moved down to Talabheim, for example, during the time of two emperors, meaning that there's a bunch of them down there. So don't think this means that they won't be pure-blooded Teutogen. It's Nar Ulrich. They will be. So we're dealing with probably Middenland, probably Talabot clan. Maybe Ostland or Ostermark if you want to make the story personal about the Gospodars when they eventually attack. So I think those two are the two other obvious choices. Ostland in the north spreads all the way over to the World's Edge Mountains at this era. And Ostermark also spreads over to the World's Edge Mountains. There is no Kislev. There's a lot of land in the north that is largely controlled by the Ungauls, but the Ungauls are also living in and with the Ostland and Ostermark group of peoples. The empire includes a lot of Ungauls during this era. That's going to change very soon when the Gospodars sweep in and conquer everything in their path. The Ungauls, though, have got effectively their own realm, for want of a better description, up in the north, and they control Ehrengrad and Prague. That's the two cities that are very Ungaul facing and are not controlled by the empire. Go south of there, though, and we hit the imperial territory.
Okay, so I think that gives us three really good options.
Four?
What was the
Middenland, Talabheim, Ostland, Ostermark. Talbot clan, pardon me. So Middenland, Talbot clan, Ostland, Ostermark.
Oh, okay, those are different. Okay.
Yeah, they're different. Very different.
Oh, that actually reminds. This is a random aside. What is Ursland from the Genevieve books?
Ursland, I don't even remember that. Christ,
because they keep the main character Prince the prince that kills Dracofels he's the son of the Electrocount of Ursland, and I'm like,
well, that it used to be Ostermark.
Okay, I was like, who the hell is Ursland? The entire book.
You've probably just got a newer copy with the edited details because the Electrocount of Ostermark was known at the time, and that book contradicted it. Ursland is bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Like it's like the most important place in the book, and I'm like, I have no idea where this place is.
Yeah, that's new. It was Ostermark before.
All right, and then Pole over here.
That's funny. That's genuinely funny. That's where they edited it. Did your one have Genevieve as a Lamian?
Yes, she is a Lamian.
She wasn't that either. Originally, they did a lot of edits, and some of them were really weird.
Yeah, because I was to be clear for anyone listening, I was listening to the audiobook. Okay, so we've got.
Okay, so while we're doing that, let's briefly break down what each of these mean as a vote. If you're going with Middenland, you're choosing someone who comes from the homeland of the cult of Ulrich, and is somebody who has left Middenland to go down to the cult, which is currently centered in Talabheim, and it's going there. So it's an outsider coming in. If you're going with Talabot land, then you're choosing someone who is locally born and can rise up through the ranks in Talabot land, where the cult of Ulrich is currently sited. If you're going with Ostland or Ostermark, you're dealing with the north or the south of what will become later Kislev. If you go with the north, then you're dealing with someone who deals a lot with Ungauls and probably has strong relations with the Ungauls. If you're dealing with the south, then you're dealing far more with people who are much more political and also close to Sylvanian vampires. So you could even tell a vampire story if you go with Ostermark.
There you go.
So
Ostland is the further north, and
Ostland's further north, and that'll be the Ungauls. Ostermark is further south, and that will be the vampires. Talabotland is choosing for the same place where the Ulrich currently is, the previous Ulrich, or you can go Middenland because he's a pure-blown Middenlander and it's coming down for the cult.
Yeah, if you kind of want this guy to be another bullet point in the growing conflict between the royals and the Ar Ulrichs that eventually kind of leads to them getting cast out of the city, then going with a midland option could probably be pretty good.
They're already cast out.
Oh, they're already been kicked out.
Yep, they're already kicked out, and the cult is centered down in Talapime just now. They were kicked out a good couple of 100 years ago. They're after the arrival of the Gospodars, 25 years later.
Yeah, you're right.
They go back up to Middenheim.
I was looking at the wrong year here. Yep. Okay. All right, get your votes in, please.
Yeah.
It is very close. This is actually the most divided poll we've seen, but it's
this is quite interesting.
Close.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab some super chats while we're doing that real fast. Getting gleeful suggestion. The Ar Ulrich goes on crusade, leading a large chunk of Ulrichans on crusade, but that means the Attilian Empire is less defended when the Gospodars arrive, and he tries to rush back unsuccessfully.
That could be something.
Another suggestion, he proves himself a great commander during the campaigns in Sartosa, and so is
elected
during the Gospodar invasion because they need a military commander, but he ultimately fails.
Possibly, I could see that, although do be aware that we're dealing with an entire empire. The Ottoman Empire is almost as big as the modern empire, in that it's got all of Kislev underneath its control, as well as most of the east of the empire. So it's not a small area. They will have many capable commanders in that area.
Yeah, I would say that it would probably make sense. I like the idea, and we'll do a vote later, see if this ends up being the case, that he leads a significant or goes with, and he's probably more of a grand master when they go off to the Crusades. I imagine he would become Ar Ulrich when he gets back.
He won't be in the Crusades if he's Grand Master, because the Grand Master didn't go at all. The Grand Master stayed. Yeah,
he would need to be a regular knight then.
So he'd be a knight. He'd be one of the knights that went against the General Order. But the Grand Master, if we go with some of the background, reportedly sent a lot of his knights, but officially said that they weren't going.
Yeah.
You know how it is. They believed that the war against the Arabians was a worthy cause and that they should be part of it. And the Knights White Wolf were the biggest order in the entire old world. So a lot of White Wolves ended up down there.
So yes, we'll play around with his exact relationship of him going down and what.
I mean, he could be a company commander, but even then he's ranking rather than the Grand Master.
Ricardo Andre, urban comparison and Kislev versus the Fractured States about the earlier question about Ostermark. Okay.
So at this point, the Empire is not that much different to how it will be come the end times in terms of the general split between urban and rural and how they work. Kislev, by comparison, is very different, with a lot more people out in the Oblast, and a lot of the Oblast towns and villages being destroyed during the arrival of Azavar Kul, and almost certainly over on the other side of the World's Edge Mountains as well, where it's entirely eradicated. So cut a long story short, Kislev is very different and far more highly populated. The Empire is very similar but fractured. Hopefully that sums it nicely.
All right, I am going to go ahead and call it there. So on both chats, the winner, surprising to me, actually, I thought Oslam was going to have it. The winner is Ostermark.
So Ostermark, let's have a very quick summary, is a grand province that is, as a people, pretty religious. And the cult of Mor is one of the core cults that the entirety of Ostermark often focus upon. They've got all manner of crazy rituals that happen at different points of the year dedicated to Mor. And they are great, let's say, not entirely happy with peeps for what goes on down in Sylvania. But do be aware, this is early Sylvania, before vampires are a thing, but it's not before necromancy has already begun to sink its teeth deep into the place. It's less that there's vampire issues in the south, but more that there's vampire issues and necromancers, and it's all sort of under the carpet rather than being a public thing that anyone could say is actually happening down in Stirland in the south. Sylvania is a part of Stirland at this point. So yeah, cut a long story short, that's who we've got, a very religious people. He's been born into this people, which means he was probably born respecting more. And because he's a pure-born Teutogan as well, Ulrich will be a core component of his life, possibly right from the very beginning. Meaning that he was probably initiated into the cult. That means he joins the cult to say that he wants to fight for Ulrich, either as a priest or as a white wolf. Both options are available. If he chooses priest, he will never become a white wolf. If he chooses white wolf, he can become a priest. But I think that is a core question for us to answer, as is the other question that we sort of put off, and that's gender. What sex is our Ulrich going to be? I feel that possibly this is one where the meme option would almost always be female, but it's so unlikely here that we're going to get a female Ulrich, particularly in this era, that I think that possibly we should even weight it, needing something like 75% going female.
That's what I was going to suggest, is that it would need to be 75% of the chat leans in on that.
Yeah, so it's going to need a lot of you to make it the Ulrich female. And if we're doing that, that's going to tell an interesting, potentially cool story, but a very different one. And that basically shows that most of you want her to be female, and we'll be like, fair enough, that's what most of you want. Let's figure this out. But the obvious choice here is that Ulrich is male, because that's the direction the cult went in. It is worth noting, though, just as one last little thing, this is before the great political choice, which happens in about 25 years after this Ulrich probably dies, where the cult takes a complete change and takes vows of chastity. Those vows have yet to occur. So the cult of Ulrich does have a lot of women in it during this era. When the vows of chastity arrive, rather interestingly, fractures the cult massively, and the women get pretty much pushed out of the cult. So this is an era where we can have women, but we're going to need a lot of you to vote for a woman to make this work.
Okay, we've got the polls up on Twitch and YouTube. There will need to be there'll need to be a solid majority on female for it to win, just because it's quite unlikely in this era of the world, but not impossible. Like it's not
only not impossible, it's 100% fine for her to be a woman. There isn't any in recorded history, but that doesn't mean that we can't build the one that they've chosen to forget. We can do that. Yeah. And it's also an era where this could happen, but the odds are against it, which is why you need to have a proper swing over to female for it to occur. And at the moment, that swing hasn't happened. So if you'd like Ulrich to be female, you need to vote now, or it won't be happening.
Let's see. Getting gleeful. So Sartosa is liberated in 1501. 4 years after the Gospodars, so he could still be in Sartosa as a knight when they arrive and have to rush back. Yeah, I mean, it's the invasion of the Gospodars does take a hot minute. It takes over 25 years.
25, 20, 26, 27 years, something like that. It's a long war. And there's a lot of territory, hundreds of miles of territory.
So I don't think he'd really have to rush back, because he probably wouldn't even hear about it by the time he would make his way home naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where there's no rushing involved. It's the old world. There's no postal service that's passing on handy notes explaining how everything occurs.
Yeah, especially because we're dealing with a younger Ulrich, not young, but like the youngest option y'all could have, who was born in Ostermark, so has a lot of his...
I want to bring up a comment. Not sure if I like the female option with the story we built. They elect a female, she loses a war, and then no more females. We have not built that story yet. And if we are building this story, that is not what will happen, Lord of Sin. We will build a good story, because the alternative would be bullshit. So yes, don't worry, it will be a cool story if that's the direction we choose.
Good on pointing out a trapdoor there.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Jonathan Scott, Ulrich, Lord, these barbarians are enthralled to some cursed ice goddess they call the Ancient Widow. The god Ulrich. Oh, so you're saying she's single?
That is so Ulrich.
That is very Ulrich.
Okay, no, actually, more Ulrich would be, who cares if she's single? Because Ulrich doesn't. Ulrich and Raya, for example, noted lovers, although Raya was married, but then Raya fucked everything that crossed her path anyway. So, yeah, Ulrich wouldn't care.
Just with Tall screaming angrily in the corner. Carl Franz, because we didn't lord enough, Beast Lord versus Vampire Lord. Vampire Lord very more often is going to be much stronger than a Beast Lord.
Yeah, the Vampire Lord is pretty much the hardest character almost in the game. And it has to be because your entire army hinges on it not dying.
Yeah, those are usually going to be quite a bit bigger up. Tradition, how many Chaos Soldiers in the North? As many as there needs to be.
Yeah, sadly not untrue.
Yeah. The answer is enough and always more. Unfortunately, GW doesn't ever deal with specific numbers when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because you have to keep in mind that when you're dealing with the Chaos Waste and into the realm of Chaos in particular, there are general like pocket dimensions that you start running into that are full of people. So there is quite literally a virtually endless amount of Chaos Warriors in the North. Like if you've ever read descriptions of the Endless Battle, which is like a battlefield that's up in the Chaos Waste, it's literally described as horizon to horizon. There are full-plated, fully anointed Chaos Warriors fighting eternally. Like it's bonkers. It's a bonkers number of people.
So true. So true. Okay, we're almost calling this one. You got a couple of extra moments left over on YouTube to vote if you wish. At the moment, females in the lead, but not by enough. Time. Okay, so we've got ourselves a win for female on both Twitch and YouTube, but not by enough. And I think that's exactly largely what I expected. It does suggest, though, that possibly we could have ourselves some very strong female characters around this hour, Ulrich. Because we've got an obvious desire for that. And I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that being the case, we've got ourselves a male Ulrich. Not really that surprising. Where do we start?
So the thing that we were the thing we needed to vote next is whether he went directly into the priesthood or if he went into knighthood, right?
Yep. Sounds good to me. Okay, so when you are initiated into the cult of Ulrich, you are taught everything about Ulrich, whether you are going to be a priest or a knight, and whether you wish to be a priest or a knight. So all of the knights are taught the basics for being a priest, and all of the priests are taught the basics for being a knight. And sometimes after initiation, they end up going in directions that they never expected. A mercenary, for example, who had fought long and hard on the front lines, initiates themselves into the cult expecting to become a knight, and through the process of initiation finds out that they would make an excellent priest and is selected to be a priest instead. And we're making a decision here as to whether we're going to be going straight into the priesthood, which generally means that they are much more vocal, they are political, they are the ones who speak on behalf of the cult, or whether we're going for someone who is, at least in their earlier years, purely a warrior and doesn't really think that much. If you want to have someone who is a politician right from the beginning and someone who is actively looking out and saying, aha, this is how we can make a difference, and explaining that, priest is better. If you want to go for someone who is in their early years just a fighter and that's all they are, they've got a relatively simple upbringing, go for that.
Yeah, so here what you're basically determining is you're leaning into how does our Ulrich tend to deal with his problems and how does he kind of think? How is he trained in a background of, if you're wanting a more thoughtful, politically cautious individual who is probably, I'm going to say it frankly, have a more dynamic and longer conflict, likely with the Gospodars, you probably want to lean more towards the priest route. If you want to have someone whose answer is to basically go forward and smash with axe, because that is how he solved many of his problems, and that was how he was trained, and he probably is going to end up getting involved in the Gospodari conflict as a fighter earlier, but it likely is going to lead to him dying earlier, then you want to go with the knight option.
Yeah. Let's get this into place.
Okay, so make sure I copy that. Okay, go. Poll is live. Poll is live for did he start as a priest or as a knight?
Wolf priest or white wolf? Wolf priest, white wolf. Wolf priest, white wolf.
Ricky Chapman. What if the future Ulrich was saved during the crusade by a child of Ulrich, leading them to try and incorporate them into the cult later in life?
We could possibly think about that.
Yeah,
We're going to be building a story pretty soon.
Yeah, I do see many people in the chat wanting there to be that as a. We will have a poll option about what is his thoughts on the children of Ulrich, and we'll make that into a poll. We'll incorporate that at some point. Nathan,
just to be clear, though, R.R. Ulrich is not a child of Ulrich.
Yeah, he is not.
Nobody bribed us, and thankfully, we don't need to deal with that bullshit. So
that's correct.
That's not the case. Just to make sure we're very clear.
Nathan Hole, Andy, I heard you've been bribed to play Final Fantasy 14.
I have been.
I've recently got back into it. Look forward to your take on it. Do you have any general experience with Final Fantasy as a setting?
Yes. Okay, I played every single Final Fantasy game, including 14. But I played 14 all the way back when it wasn't the Realm Reborn. It was just the Realm, and it was a bit crap. I came back to it on PS4 after its first expansion got released, somewhere around there, maybe its second one. But I didn't play it that much. I dived in, started, but work came. I did the work, forgot about it, and never went back to it again. So I'm really looking forward to diving in because it's a game that I've never really properly sunk my teeth into. So yeah, it's gonna be a laugh.
Getting Gleeful, is he about 50 to 60 in 1497? So it's 50 to so in 1497 he would probably be we'll probably say about 60 to kind of split the difference.
Yeah,
because we had it from 50 to 69, so we'll say 60 to split the difference. So that age, when he's still in the Crusade, I'm just thinking about when exactly he would become our Ulrich. Does he return after Sartosa is liberated and then get elected during the Gospodar invasion?
We'll find out when we get to that point of his life. Yeah.
And then Lindsay Law, for me, I think it's very important.
Fellow Lorebeard!
This yes, a fellow Lorebeard, very true. It's important that this R. Ulrich is married to differentiate them from later ones.
I think that this is a very important point. Later R. Ulrichs, after this one, maybe only one after this one, depending on when we decide this R. Ulrich dies, can't marry, can't have children, can't create dynasties. What we're dealing with, though, is probably someone who is the son of a white wolf or a priest, probably the son of a priest, in fact, because they could marry then. Indeed, building entire dynasties was a core component of working within the cult of Ulrich. So you'll probably find that his dad was a priest, his dad's dad was a priest, his dad's dad was a priest. He's from a long line of established Ulrichans. And continuing that on with someone marrying and having their own kids, I think absolutely makes sense.
Yep, and that is time.
Okay, that was a close one on both sides. So over on Twitch, it was 65% went Wolf Priest, and really close over on YouTube, where it was 52% went Wolf Priest. Okay, so we've got someone who's gone into the cult as a priest, and I think that reinforces the idea that he's from a line of priests, that he himself, his father was a priest, his father's father was a priest, and possibly it goes all the way back to the R. Ulrichs who fled and were kicked out from, could be a descendant of the R. Ulrich who was kicked out of Middenheim for rising up against the Electrocounts there and trying to take control. That's kind of cool as a story. So I think that could be a good one-off. Is he the descendant of them, or is he a different family? And in fact, let's do three options here. Option one, he's the descendant of the R. Ulrich who rebelled against the Electrocount. Option two, he's a Valgeir, okay, which is the future R. Ulrich line that will come to figure out a way to get around the vow at a later date. Or alternatively, he's from a completely different line that we're going to make up, that have got their own story for their own dynastic, family that they're building. So one option is descendant of the previous R. Ulrich. who rebelled. Second option being a Valgir, the important line of our Ulrics that will later on take control of the cult. Or alternatively, our third option, he's something that we're about to create.
Cool.
I think that makes for a fun little poll. Decide who he is.
Sure.
Yeah,
we're
building a real character here. Oh, perfect. That's because we rock.
His uncle was a dentist. Truly, that would be the most horrible thing.
Why is his uncle a dentist? I feel like I'm missing something.
So someone in chat just decided that his uncle was a dentist, and it's like,
okay, Brock, sure.
Honestly, that's probably the most terrifying person he knew.
I'm going to bring this one up as well, Brock. I don't think we need to ask. He'll be a peasant. Most of the White Wolves are, and most of the priests are as well. It's why the dynasty was seen to be so damaging, because they were not noble. But if we go with Valgir as an option here, then he's noble, because the Valgirs are noble, where the other two were not. Okay, so if you choose descendant of previous Ulric, not noble. If you choose, we're making up ourselves, it won't be noble. But if you want to have a noble, it's Valgir.
Yep.
Oh,
Cthulhu!
We both did the same thing.
Yeah. Cthulhu, thank you. Or Cthulhu, excuse me.
Cthulhu.
Cthulhu. Thank you very much for becoming a member. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's amazing. Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah. Oh, right. I need to add that to my notes. Started relationship in cult as wolf priest. I'm just keeping notes.
Yeah. Good move.
Yeah. I almost think because the night was so close, and because we mentioned because the female for the sex vote was so high. I almost wonder if it'd be worth that we have like an important woman and his wife, maybe his wife who was a female knight.
I think is. It seems almost certain that he's going to be, because that vote was so close, that he's probably going to be married to.
Thank you for gifting
you
5 memberships, you sweet bastard. Thank
Dylan
you.
Schroeder, you kick ass. I think I might love you just a little. So yeah, I think it seems very likely that he is married to a Knight of the White Wolf, and the pair of them probably went to war together and possibly met each other at war. But we'll decide that when we get.
Hey, that's a hell of a meet cute. Is the crusade?
it's definitely a good place to meet, eh?
Yep. The way I saw her obliterating Arabians just stirred my heart.
That's certainly a choice, isn't it?
Jonathan Scott, idea. Pre-invasion, the Gospodars included Ulric in their pantheon, but when the cult unites against, it would be odd for the Gospodars to have Ulric, I would think.
Not just odd, that definitely isn't the case unless they rewrote the lore. The Gospodars are a chaos tribe, and they're a chaos tribe that gets summoned by the Ancient Widow to be separate from the tribes from the north. The Gospodars are like one of the tribes from the north. No other way of putting it. This is not they're a bunch of good guys situation. They are a group that wander around up there. Now, whether they worship the chaos gods is a different thing. But they were definitely one of the tribes that drew their blood from the peoples of the north. They were summoned by the Ancient Widow over to Kislev to protect it and continue to do so forever. Basically, a whole new chaos tribe is about to come running down into the empire.
He was a peasant, but she was a Valgir. Ooh.
Oh!
Scandalous.
I love it! Hey.
All right, and make sure you get your votes in. But it's time. And
yes, it's looking like it's the same on both sides. Both Twitch and YouTube have voted for a brand new family line, so I like that. Descendant of Rebel Ulric did pretty well on both sides. No one really was interested in him being a descendant.
Yeah, nobody wanted Valgir.
Okay, so I think that possibly if we're almost building two characters at once, our knight is very likely then to be a descendant of the previous Rebel Ulric. So she is from a peasant line that was effectively trying to build their own dynasty. We don't have a name for that line. We just know that it was a line. Where he is from a completely different family, a family of pure-blooded Teutogens who are currently sited over in Ostermark. That's where they live, and it's almost certainly where the temple where he was raised is sited. So he is likely, now this might sound strange given that we chose Ostermark, but he's probably a Kislevite. And by that I mean he was born in the territory that's in modern Kislev. And that's what later on we're going to have him trying to defend, his homeland. His homeland is going to get invaded later. And the Temple of Ulrich that he has is over there. It's probably not that far away from modern-day Kislev city. Okay, so not too far away from the Shirokij forest, which is the big forest at the edge of the modern empire, where Kislev city is.
I like that a lot.
In modern Kislev, there's a big temple of Ulrich in Kislev city, and it's older than Kislev city itself. And it's where the White Company is centered. Now, White Company no longer has talking priests. And by that, I mean they no longer have priests at all. White Company got rid of them in Kislev because of the arrival of the Gospodars. But this is before then. So back then, at this point, there's a White Company of White Wolves that are sited in what will become modern-day Kislev. And there are talking priests. So he's almost certainly a descendant of a long line of priests who have been in this area, pure-blooded Teutogens, who have been effectively teaching people how to fight and wage wars over in the far, far east of the empire. They've been fighting against greenskins. They've been fighting against undead problems down in the south over the Erie Downs. He's probably ranged on horse all the way up to modern-day Prague, to the World's Edge Mountains, all the way down to the Erie Downs, which is down at the south side of Ostermark. It's also worth noting there's another place in Ostermark that's super important. It's called the Veld. Now, the Veld is over in the east of Ostermark, and the Veld is where the best war horses in the empire can be found. And the White Wolves draw significant numbers from here. So he probably has been all the way down to the Veld and has extraordinary access to some of the best horse flesh that the empire has available to them, because he's going to be working from the main temple in Kislev. I think I only have one question, and that's when did he join the cult? At the moment, it seems obvious it was when he was young, because he's the son of priests, but possibly he had a life beforehand. Maybe he was a mercenary before that. Maybe he was a soldier. Maybe he helped protect up in the World's Edge Mountains, holding off against, I don't know, some invading greenskins when they were trying to take out the mines that can be found there. So when does he join? Most join the cult in their early 20s, after they've had some experience. But those who are directly linked to the cult often join in their early teens. So they start training to become a priest when they've been doomed. Now, if you don't know what dooming is, worth describing because it's super important to Ostermark. Dooming is when you reach 10 years old. Before you're 10, you're considered unemployable, you can't be married. Basically, you're not even really, strictly speaking, supposed to do anything. The child labor of medieval Europe doesn't happen in the Warhammer world because it's deemed to be deeply inappropriate to do it. They do it anyway because Warhammer world's properly broken. Yeah. But Moore's not meant to take any of these children, does all the time. And when you reach 10, you get a dooming where a priest of Moor comes up to you, waves a bunch of incense, and tells you how you're going to die as he casts his mind into the future along with Moor's help. Or at least that's what's supposed to happen. Most priests of Moor aren't actually blessed. They see nothing. They just make it up. Oh, watch out for forks. You're going to die with a fork, or whatever the priest of Moor might say.
Beware the man with the red
second that you've become doomed, you can join any cult, you can take any job, you can get married, which is super dodgy by modern thoughts, because hell, you're only 10 years old. That's clearly dodgy as hell. But what we've got is a 10-year-old as the first option, just doomed. Second option will be teenage. Third option will be early 20s. That seems fair? What do you think?
Okay, so doomed, early teens, early 20s.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Cool. So in early 20s would be that...
And that's not strictly true. I'm just bringing this one up so we've got it. No, but any that do and receive a blessing of Ulrich are lose all their magic.
Andy was responding to the super chat. Can people that are spellcasters, can
Thanks
people
for
with
that.
magic become priests of Ulrich?
Thank you very much for saying that out loud.
I heard him say no, and I was like, what?
No!
At Doom. Okay, so if he did it at Dooming, then he was probably very much following family
Damn
legacy.
straight. Yeah. Definitely. He's following in his family's footsteps. If he's doing it in his teenage years, it's often because they receive a calling. They might even be blessed by Ulrich already at this point. It's not that common for mid-teens or early teens to immediately join the cult. 20s
I can see that being like
means,
that's his first experience of
yeah,
unleashing a blessing.
So if you're going with one, as in dooming, option one, then you're going with he's following in his family's footsteps. If you're going with teenage, you're going with he was blessed by Ulrich himself and moved into the cult. And if you're going with the 20s, then you're going with someone who is experienced, has experienced enough of the world, and then chooses to join the cult himself. So the first one, his family choice. Second one is Ulrich's choice. Third one is his choice. So what would you rather to help define him?
Oh, that's a cute way to put it. Here, there we go.
Dooming is family choice. Teenage is Ulrich's choice. 20s is his choice.
Yeah, and think about how this talks about his character. Of like, if you're going with family choice, this is going to be a guy who's very deeply motivated by family. This is a guy who cares a lot and thinks often about his family.
Possibly the opposite. You might hate them because of what he did. We could go lots of different ways.
His family will have a very dramatic impact on his life.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
If you're going with kind of the middle option, then Ulrich is a much more influential sphere in his life. His relationship with the god. And then the last option is that he is a much more of an independent individual, a very independent thinker, which can be good and bad, depending on various circumstances. So let me copy pasta. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's three nice good ones there.
So not only does this tell us when he becomes a priest or joins the priesthood, but this also tells us a little a nice little nugget about who he is as a man.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm interested to see what you're all going to choose for this one. I think this makes for an interesting one.
Yeah, this one is actually going to be a pretty significant because this will tell us a lot about him.
A huge amount. I mean, if you choose Ulrich, it's not his choice at all. Ulrich often chooses regardless. I mean, he's almost a slave to the god of war rather than actually having his own choice. You choose, he does it himself, then he's self-determined. He makes his own choices. Will probably do things like he goes off and does things that his family might not want. If we go with family driving him, then a lot of his early choices are going to be completely out of his hands. It's so many different ways of doing this. I quite like this one.
Yeah. What's interesting is this also ties in a fun way to what his relationship with his wife very, very well may be as well. Definitely. Of like, if it's Ulrich, then this is something that was, you can almost imagine that he had a vision about it, or it was something that was
visions are really unlikely. Ulrich doesn't normally go for visions unless they're literally prophets or seers. And Ulrich tends to just go for sort out yourself. Ulrich doesn't tell people what to do. Ulrich just doesn't. Ulrich is all about sort out yourself. If you can't figure it out yourself, why are you even in my cult? The entire books of Ulrich are just full of stories of Ulrich fucking everything up. Left, right, and center. He goes from place to place, fucking everything, often because he's fucking everything, screws everything up, and then comes out and tries to be a better person from it, which is why honor is so important. They have to try and do the best they can with the situation that they have. And he screws up again and again and again, and he doesn't get help. But he learns and becomes, by the end of most of the stories, the primary force that holds off chaos. He becomes a great god, and he was not a good god to begin with. And that's the general path that Ulrich teaches all of the priests, all the white wolves. You've got to look at what Ulrich did and try to learn from his mistakes. And you've got to figure it out for yourself, because Ulrich doesn't care. Ulrich is not there to hold your hand. You've got to hold your own hand. This isn't a a replacement for real world religions and saying, oh, it's just like this one. And no, Ulricanism is its own unique thing. And it's not, if you're a priest of Ulric, you're not out there trying to help people out and do things for people. Fuck that, they're the opposite. Someone comes to them and says, I'm stuck, I need help. They say, what are you coming to me for? Go figure it out, you idiot. Off you go, get out, go.
Yep,
because that's
your votes
what
in.
Ulric would do.
Time is running out. Get your votes in, please.
Let's see how the votes are going.
This one is
so
pretty split.
Yeah, interesting. So at the moment, we've got a nice split between, we've just had the poll end and 20s has won over on Twitch. And at the moment, Ulric's Choice Teenage is ahead over in YouTube. If you'd like to influence it to something else, go vote now. At the moment, approximately half of you voted on YouTube, so there's a lot of you could still drop in and add to the vote there.
Yeah, I'm going to grab... Jonathan Teen. You never understood me, Mom. Only Ulric does.
You often find a lot of people who are chosen by Ulric have no idea why Ulric has chosen them. They have none. And they're just then suddenly blessed and capable of imbuing prayers of Ulric with actual divine might. And they're like, why? I'm not a fighter. I'm not a this. I'm not a that. It can come as a shock when a god chooses you. They don't just choose you because you are perfect where you are. Some gods select individuals for what appears to be very random reasons.
All right, and I think that's enough time, so I'm going to go ahead and call it. And even with accounting how Twitch would affect the overall vote, the winner is Teenage.
Yeah, so what we've got here is a very clear win over on YouTube for Teenage, so I don't think we need to doubt that. Second was early 20s. It was the flip over in Twitch. We can use that again.
So maybe later teenage years?
Yeah, like I'm thinking maybe 18, 19. Yeah, somewhere around there. So we're talking late teens. He's old enough now that he's relatively self-determined. His parents are educated. Remember this, because they have gone through initiation. At least one of them has. His father's probably a priest and has probably taught him how to read and write, because Ulricans can read and write, contrary to the popular belief of them. They're surprisingly sophisticated. They teach tactics, they teach war, they teach fighting. By the age of 18, 19, he's a full-grown man. He can fight, and very possibly he's already married. Now, if you want to go with he's married early, very common, particularly amongst the common folk, I think we should probably do that now. But if you prefer the story of he meets his wife abroad or at war, let's sort that now as well. So is he married early?
Sure.
It's a really quick binary choice on a very short vote. Because if he's married early, he can have kids already, and that we can also build a story where he meets someone else later, which might put him in an area of conflict. He leaves, he goes down south, because we know he's probably going to the Crusades. He goes down to the Crusades and then possibly meets someone else when he's married at home. People are complicated, and that's okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's no reason that we can't also have him being married and then maybe getting married again later. But choosing for him to be married early does not stop him from getting married again later. This is not a morally perfect person. Nobody is morally perfect, no matter how they try.
Yeah, it also would be very Ulrican of him to just like be porking wherever he ends up.
Yeah, totally. So I'd say that the choice here is you are choosing someone who is morally dubious if you go with he's married, or he's morally pure if you go for the other one. Both of these can cause massive problems.
Yeah, because I am very attached to the idea that he meets the female knight we spoke about abroad.
Me too.
So
I am
the
as well.
question is that his first wife? Or is it his second wife?
So if you would like him to be morally complicated, choose that he's married early. If you would like him to be morally simple, choose that he marries later.
Yeah, which simple isn't bad. Neither is complicated bad. They're just different.
Both of them cause different things, because one of them speaks to a character that's somewhat immovable. His honor is the most important thing in his life.
I'm only giving you all 2 minutes on this, by the way, and one of those minutes is already up. So hurry up and vote. Hurry up and vote. Hurry up and vote.
Yep. Okay, at the moment, votes are really quite close, really close. Just a few more votes in either direction could swing it in either direction. So do please get your vote in. We only have a few more moments left before this one's running out.
This one is very much a your vote matters.
Ulrich views in polygamy are you don't do polygamy. Marriage is an honorable institution that is designed to support the other person. They have some very sexist rules if you go with some versions of the background where the husband is in control of a particular marriage, but that's modern, not early. Early,
20 to 30
the cult
seconds.
is nowhere near as sexist. But polygamy is not really an Ulrican thing, unlike, say, Manan, where polygamy is a common thing.
People are going to people.
Manan. People go to people all the time. Just because you can't do a thing doesn't mean they won't. But if it's an our Ulrich will only get voted for if he's proven to be honourable. They won't do someone who is obviously dishonourable. So we're going to have to make sure that whatever we build is someone that will get voted as our Ulrich later.
And that is time.
Okay, so we got a slight split. Just one vote split it over on Twitch, where it was no later. He's morally good. Where if we go on the other side,
even with that one extra point helping them, the yes, he's
yes
married
is going to
early
win it.
wins.
Yeah, the yes is going to win this. Okay, so what we're going to it's relatively close. So what we can suggest is that possibly this is a marriage that he was never that keen on to begin with anyway. We've already suggested that he's part of a family that has got its own its own desire to have a dynasty, would be a good way of putting it. So it's very possible he's in an arranged marriage. And he has been married to possibly a Valgir since Valgir was last and the one that nobody wanted. So he's been married to a Valgir to continue on that particular dynasty. See, he is from, if I remember correctly, he's from the old R. Ulrich stock. No, it's an entirely new family, isn't it?
Yeah, entirely
okay,
new family.
So he R. Ulrich stock is where Knight's going to be.
I like that for people, the like modern day characters looking back on him. Of that, there's that idea that the Valgirs are like, like we're related to him. We tie our lineage back to him, but there's that kind of unspoken knowledge that he didn't really love her. Like the woman that he actually loved comes later. Indeed.
Okay, so I think the easiest way to put this is that we allow ourselves to get a couple of kids. He then enters into the cult. And he's initiated. About a year or so later, he then joins into the local priesthood. There's going to be at least 10 to 15 priests in the local temple. There's going to be a den father who's the deputy priest who will be responsible for training all of the priests, the new initiates. There's going to be the high priest over in what will eventually become Kislev at a later date. I can't remember the name of the place. There is an actual name for it before it was Kislev. And that high priest is going to be responsible for his overall tutelage. And he's going to be here for a good 4 or 5 years. And when he gets past his initiation, most priests do one of two things. One, they go to war and they're sitting in the front lines blessing the various Knights of the White Wolf and the various other soldiers as they go off, for example, to deal with driving from the hordes of chaos in the north. Norskins or some equivalent are coming down. So they're often fighting those. But other priests stay back inside their temple because there's various temple jobs that have to be done as well, ranging from the next batch of initiates who need to be trained. You can't just take them all over hither and yon to various front lines. Those initiates need to be taught before they're allowed to go out. They need to be trained how to fight. Normally, it's the older priests who deal with this, but if you're dealing with a set of Ulrichans who are often on the front line, the older priests often are dead. So there's often a reason to stay back. Equally, there's things like having to keep the eternal flame burning by dropping logs in it. The initiates have to be watched as they do that to make sure they don't fuck up. So he's going to be here for probably a good 3, 4, 5 years before it reaches the point where he is going to leave. And we know he's going to leave because we've decided already that he's going to head off to the Crusades. And I think we need to have some sort of instigating moment, something that makes him realize that the Crusades is where he wishes to go. One other detail that we definitely have is that he's been blessed. So we need to determine what this means. There's a few things to say. Not that many priests are blessed. A common misconception of Warhammer is that every single priest can summon up great prayers and call them down. It's not true. The vast majority can't. Only a few of them are actually blessed by the gods. And being blessed is special. It means that the cult will single you out and will often protect you and keep you away from the front lines because they're afraid that they will lose this person who is blessed by the gods, particularly if they're not particularly good at fighting yet, or they don't think that they're particularly worthy. There's often a lot of judgment from older priests who've been in the cult for a long time when we're never singled out by the god for being blessed. Why can't they do it? And they often punish the next generation quite unsatisfactorily. It's not a nice thing to do, but people are going to people. They're meant to be honorable. They often are.
Yeah, I kind of like that as far as like I could see why he decides to go on to the Crusades, almost to escape from all of that.
Escape. So I think that possibly is our first thing. We need to have ourselves a clear instigating one. So the first one is he's seeking to escape controlling elders, basically. Yeah, that makes for a good story. So we're going to need to have at least 2 more. If you've got ideas, drop them into the chat so that we can have a look at them and see if there's anything else that we want to bring that in.
I think this could actually make for a reasonable choice of why he leaves. I've seen a lot of people wishing that his first wife dies tragically early.
Now we went for complicated because that's what won the vote. So we don't want to simplify it. We don't want to simplify. I get that some of you might prefer that to keep him honorable, but we went complicated.
Yeah, for the complicated, I could see that there are some people in the chat that are uncomfortable with the idea, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing. But I would note that if you're keeping in mind that this is a complex character, the idea that his wife still being alive and like word coming down to him eventually of what's happening with the Gospodars being essentially from his perspective an invading chaos force into where his first family is, that is going to add a serious degree of like, oh fuck.
That makes for an interesting later story. Yeah, I quite like that. Okay, so we're looking for another really strong reason for him to basically up sticks and leave Ostermark and head out. The next one could be basically he heads to Talapine rather than the Crusades and he's escaping because he's blessed and the ranking members of the cult wish to see and the blessed member that's arisen out of Ostermark. That happens when they find out that someone's blessed. They get summoned by the cult so that they can effectively determine if it's true or not. Are you actually blessed? Are you effectively a living saint, or are you just someone who's claiming to be blessed? Is there miracles being performed around you? Is this real? So the way that he gets plucked out for the second option is it's not his choice. He is taken away by the cult. So first one is he's escaping. The next one is the cult itself reaches out and takes him away from his family and his roots and will probably send him somewhere else later.
Oh, yeah, that's tragic.
That's pretty tragic. I do like a tragic option. Anyone else got any cool ideas out there?
I saw a suggestion earlier from some folks about like that he...
Oh, well, there's one here I need to call out. Can't be, unless we're going deeply illegal. She's obviously... an Ulrican, but Sigmarism is banned, absolutely outlawed across the Ottoman Empire.
Oh yeah, there would be no Sigmarites, at least not.
Okay, now there's loads of underground Sigmarites who believe that, but you got to remember, this is not the Empire, this is the Ottoman Empire. In the Ottoman Empire, they believe that Sigmar never became a god, and he's just a man. Okay, and the whole, he's a god thing is what they lie about over in Reichland et al. It's just all lies.
Do we want to have an option that he genuinely sees it as the Ulrican thing to do? That this is...
I think it's most likely he's never heard of it. It's so far away. The Ulricans are all going to be talking about it. No, I think that's a good one. Okay, he believes in it. He believes in the war, and eventually his youthful spirit has dragged him off in that direction. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, because that still allows to kind of have a character who makes a bit of a, what would be almost looked back on in some ways as a young, foolish decision of, I'm going to go fight the good fight. And then he goes and witnesses probably some horrible shit.
Horror, yeah.
The Crusades was not a good, like...
It's not a good war at all.
It's not a good war. It's not a good war at all. It's especially the later elements of it, especially when they get into Araby, it gets really, really bad. Because like a lot of the people they fight, it gets really complicated when they get into Araby because you have a lot of the factions that are just trying to survive. You have people that are holding off what they see as invaders. You have the loyalists to Jafar. It's like a whole thing, and the forces that are in Araby a lot of the Crusaders, just like in our world's crusade, do some horrible shit.
Yep.
And some of the people, especially Jafar's forces, the tactics they use to deal with the Crusaders lead to some really, really just horrible, horrible things happening to people.
Yeah, retribution as well.
Yeah. So do we need another option, or is 3 good?
3's good. Let's go with those.
Okay.
That's a good start. No one's dropped in another cool idea, so let's run with those. Let's see which one wins, and then we'll start building the story outwards from there as to how he moves off.
I think it would depend on how you define worst. Like I would say for the Crusaders, the early part of the war was the easiest to justify when they were like freeing Astalia and Talea, and they were dealing with almost purely loyalists to Jafar, and it was very much we're freeing slaves, we're doing the right thing, awesome. And then when they chased him to Araby, things got a lot more complicated because you had people being like, well, I'm going to kill as many Arabians as I can find. You had people that would say, oh, I'm looting in the name of Sigmar, or I'm looting because that's fair. And they started like looting and taking slaves and doing other horrible shit. You had people that were just using it as an excuse to fight and unleash violence. You had some people that were trying to do the right thing. But also when they got to Araby, Jafar unleashed like his allies, which were the Skaven and the demons. So there was a lot of horrible shit that showed up to fight alongside him. A lot of the Crusaders died at sea. So a lot of people like drowned and other horrible shit.
And again, if you go with slightly more complicated readings of it all, his allies might not have been his allies at all. And that was merely what the Crusaders said to justify what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Once they left Talea to go over to Araby, things got complicated.
Super complicated. Okay, so far we've got he believes in the war is sitting at the top vote over on YouTube. If you would like that to change, go do so now. Believing in the war means he's going to leave his family to go to war, which speaks for someone who is possibly not a good guy in terms of some respects, but a good guy as far as Ulrich is concerned. It suggests someone who puts faith ahead of his family. Which is something that is generally deemed by many in the Empire to be tantamount to heresy. But Ulrichans do this. And many view it to be almost, as much as I want to say it, putting the blood god before your family. You've allowed your lust for war to override your good sense. So do be aware that if you're choosing believes in the war, I will be adding some of that.
Yeah, and it could lead to an interesting that this is a character that really loves war, or perhaps that this is something he looks back on as a youthful mistake, which could actually make for a very cool
everything we do has consequences. So if you're choosing someone who ultimately believes in war, okay, we're going to be using that. But equally, if you choose one of the other ones, trust me, we're going to be giving all of them a bit of complication.
You can't escape the consequences. There is no.
There's a reason. It's because we chose complicated. Yeah. Which means every choice you make, we're going to analyze it and try to give it an extra layer as to what it all means.
Yep. So please do get your votes in on that. I'd like to get to at least 75 of y'all voting. So please do get your votes in. I'm gonna grab some super chats real quick. Ricky Chapman. His first kill was when he strangled a goblin wolf rider with his bare hands, killing both wolf and goblin, and he gained the nickname Snapper. That sounds like something that almost assuredly didn't happen, but people say happened. But it could have, you know. Super or like unrelated question: why is there not many polygamous marriages in the old world? Is it against Riot's tradition, or is it just kind of a political?
No, Riot has no real problems with it at all. Polygamy is not something that Sigmar likes. And that's the problem. Sigmar has risen to such a dominance in the Empire that polygamy is no longer a core component of what the old world offers.
Oh, man. Man, I've seen too many movies about that.
Holy crap. Yep, this is a thing that's about to happen, I think.
we got a comment that says young man leaves wife to fight in the Middle East, and every American in the audience goes, oh dear. Oh dear.
I've
seen that in too many movies.
Yeah.
Did I fire off a Twitch poll? I thought I did.
Know. Did you? I didn't see it.
Twitch, did I forget to give y'all a poll? I'll give you all.
I didn't see it there.
I'll give you all 1 minute. It's gonna be very short, but here. Why you're
doing that, I'll grab the next super chat. Is the proper and full title are Ulrichard? Ulrichard or Ulrichard? I'm not sure, Fred.
Ulrichard sounds like a Pokemon. I'm just gonna
it does. I choose you, Ulrichard. Yeah, okay, let's move on swiftly.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll.
Seems fair. It's closer than I expected. Did we get one over on Twitch?
We did. They had Elders as the number one choice, but it was also very split.
Okay, escape from Elders and believes in the war. It's definitely not taken by the cult, though. So the most likely one would be taken by the cult, by far, because it's what the cults do. I didn't want to say that beforehand because I figured it might influence some either for or against it. It is by far the most likely outcome because the cult does not want blessed folk running around out of their control because they're supposed to be the mouthpiece of their gods. They're supposed to be the ones that understand it. And those who are blessed by the gods should 100% be underneath their thrall. So this suggests that we've got a different story here, which means our first and obvious immediate complication is he hasn't told anyone he's blessed by Ulrich. He's keeping it quiet, and probably because he's heard what happened to his previous family members, because we're aware that he comes from a line of Ulrichans, and one or two of them may have been blessed in the past, and they are often plucked away by the cult, and they don't get to control their lives at all, in the slightest. But we've got ourselves a young man who is already losing control of his life in other ways. He was sent off to be married early. He joined into the cult because a god has effectively selected him and he's almost guilted into doing it. And now his own honor is getting in the way of everything too, because he apparently is almost compelled upon hearing the year after year tales of what's happening, the atrocities that are happening down in the south, to try and do something about it. But then is also torn as to should he then go against the cult, which have publicly said they're not doing it, which means he would have to effectively walk away from his cult and join all the rebels. Now, there's a tacit acceptance of this in the cult of Ulrich, Many of the White Wolves just go, ignoring their orders, but none of the officers do. Effectively, he's, in some respects, wiping himself out of any chance of ever doing well in the cult if he does this. But, as we've said, he's trying to keep what he is hidden anyway, and that's the fact that Ulrich has chosen him. So he's off to do his own thing. But that gives us the second issue of having to leave his family, his 2 kids, possibly his 3 kids by this point. He's leaving his kids behind and possibly to never see them again. Because the stories that are coming back from the Arabian front lines is most of them are dying. They need more men. If we don't get down there, they're going to sweep out of Tilia and Estalia. We may be pushing them back at the moment.
The old world is in danger.
But the whole old world is going to fall to this because we're running out of people in the front line. And there's a small part of it, the honor part of him, going, well, even though it's a war on the other side of the world to him, Ostermark, he lives right in the middle of future Kislev. He is so far away from the front lines that it will probably never influence him. But that's not what he's thinking. He's thinking the bigger story, which is, what about the people that it is influencing? What about the people who are dying? And he's probably having a conversation with his wife saying that he can't not do something.
Yeah, which
he has to.
I love this a lot because I think this really sets up for how he's going to eventually die. In the Gospodar invasion, of that, there's going to be people that are going to talk to him and say, it's not our problem. Like, it's not our thing. Those aren't like the Ungals. That's their thing, not ours. And he's going to say, no, that's wrong. Yeah.
We've got a clear story building for his character here. And his character is, he believes in right and wrong. And he believes that there is ultimately a moral choice to be made here. And the moral choice is he has to save those lives. He believes he can make a difference. And honestly, Ulrich has chosen him. Now, he doesn't say that out loud because of the fear of being taken away from his family, everything to go to Talabheim, to be summoned to be amongst the priesthood in Talabheim that are all blessed. So he's avoided that, but the real war is something he can't avoid. So he's decided to go. That is that sucks for his family, who is she's probably supporting him, and she's like, yeah, I understand you've got to do that, but there's going to be tears, heartache, horror that he might never ever come back, tearfully saying goodbye to his children. This is not an easy choice. The war is on the other side of the world. Just getting there alone, most won't survive it. But getting there and then going to war against the worst that the world has to offer means he'll probably die. I mean, the chance of him surviving is probably in both their heads is less than 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
This is them saying goodbye, never to see each other again. It hurts.
Yep. But interestingly, this also, y'all are basically creating probably one of, if not the most well-traveled Art Ulrich that has ever lived. Of that he is going far into
time
the
to
desert,
go hiking,
south, wearing hopefully, God, you hope he doesn't wear his wolf pelt, or you can understand him being like, hey, you know how some of the wolf priests have that big standard that keeps the wolf pelt away from them? Put that shit way up there so it's not making me die out here of heat.
That's amusing.
But this is and it's also the interesting of imagining an Art Ulrich that's goes to Araby with a very strong moral compass and tries to maintain it in probably the absolute worst war of this era to have a moral compass in. Which likely ends up telling an interesting story of him meeting his wife, of meeting a Knight of the White Wolf among the Crusades and witnessing how some of the other knightly orders or some other individuals are acting down here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people down here, and I think this is where we can get ourselves an interesting and more worldly view in general. Not only does he have to cross from where he is in Ostermark, modern-day Kislev, through towards, and I mean, which route do you take? Do you go down to the border princes, which means you avoid the Sigmarites, which might be wiser for him, or do you head right through the heart of the empire and almost certainly get stopped because he is from a competing and rival and at war with empire? So it's more likely he's heading south. And he's going to go down through the border princes.
Through Blackfire Pass into the border princes, down through the border princes to port.
So I'd say possibly there is a choice here, which is he makes his own way down through the border princes, self-determination, or he basically smuggles himself. He smuggles himself with all of the various folk from across the empire, from both of the empires. So he joins them up, but he's not joining up as an Ulrican. He's joining up as a man of conscience. He's not sitting there wearing a wolf pelt or wearing his massive priest of Ulrich robes with a big howling wolf on it. Okay, basically you're making a choice here between he is going as an Ulrican on the front line, or he's going as a man of conscience who happens to be, as far as he's almost concerned, not doing the priestly job just now. He's doing what's right. He's walked away from the cult to do what he thinks is right. It's a pretty big choice here. So you're going for border princes and going as a member of the cult of Ulrich, or through the empire in Bretonnia and leaving the cult behind. For all, you can't really leave it. He's blessed by Ulrich, for goodness sake, but he has left the trappings of the cult behind him.
Okay, yeah, this one's going to be very short. I'm only going to give y'all 1 minute on it because I'm just keeping an eye on the time here.
Yeah, good point. Well made.
And then I'm going to copy post and then copy post and fire. All right, the poll is live. And once again, this is detailing about a little bit about him, of that if this is a guy who makes his way across the Empire of Bretonnia, this is a man who's going to spend a lot of time among non-Ulricans. And holy sweet Jeebus, Old Man Zola, thank you for the very generous super chat. I had to come in late, started at the beginning. Thank you, gentlemen, for all the entertainment over the years. Got to hit the 40K crew as well. You're all great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I was having a heart attack when I saw that red that you would come in and been like, I'm late. He's a werewolf now.
Oh, no.
Like,
It's okay. I had exactly the same heart attack.
Yeah, it was just a sweet message. Anyway, what I was saying is that if this is a guy that cuts across a lot of the Empire, you are very likely dealing with a character who's going to have a more, probably is going to be less concerned with a lot of the Empire's personal divisions and probably more detached from it. Whereas this is a man that goes south and avoids a lot of it. This is a man who likely will hang on to many of his prejudices against Sigmarites and other groups.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, alrighty. How close are we to time?
And that time we've got to hustle.
Superb. That being the case,
heavily smuggles. He hides among the puppet man. Okay,
so this isn't uncommon in that a lot of folk were wanting to go to the Crusades because the holy people across the empires on both sides were talking it up. The cult of Ulrich was both talking it up and down, and many Sigmarites of conscience were talking it up and saying, we have to do something to save the old world. Think of it a little bit like a great invasion of chaos, but from the south instead of the north. And that's how many of them were talking about it. And there were folk from across both empires being ferried down the main rivers, particularly down the river Talabek, down towards Marienburg, and then from Marienburg down to Bretonnia, joining the great swath of men that were coming from across Bretonnia, all the knights that were still rising up and then taking their way down to the Great Crusade, because it was the first ever crusade that was declared by Bretonnia to basically take them all out. And it's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's awesome. And he's joining this.
I really like this as well because I think y'all have kept a very good consistency, and this guy keeps secrets. Like he just kind of does his own shit. Like he's not told anyone he's blessed. He's basically sneaking off. Like he's just on his own little personal campaign of through life.
Yeah, and he's very much he's interesting. He's not someone who's entirely self-determined. He was pushed into a host of things, and he's slowly but surely gained his independence as he's grown older. And that eventually turned into breaking free from the cult completely as a man that, because of his conscience, has chosen to take to the front lines. During this time, he will meet men of the Electoral Empire who are also going down. He'll be speaking to a lot of them. They speak the same language, after all, Reichsspiel. He's going to be talking then down into men of Westerland, down in Marienburg. Got to remember, this is part of the empire at the moment. It's the Electoral Empire, but still part of the empire. And he'll be learning a lot more from them. He'll be meeting people of Middenheim and who are on the other side of the Great Divide as well. He'll be meeting from Middenland who are not part of his empire and learning different stories of Ulrich. And on this side, the Ulrichans are very much pushing for going to war. On the other side, the top of the cult is saying don't. So that provides an interesting divide between the two different types of Ulrichans.
Yeah, I really like that y'all are setting up, intentionally or not, I think this is setting up to be a nice, proper tragedy of R. Ulrich who is going to die fairly young. We know when he's going to die. We've established that fairly early in the
story. He's not going to be that young. He's going to be probably in his 60s.
Oh yeah, but he's not like going to be ancient. You know,
no.
Yeah, super long lived. But the thing that I find really interesting is that this is a very worldly R. Ulrich who's going to be seeing a lot of people from a lot of different cultures going a lot of different places and realizing how common man is.
Yeah,
and the idea that this would have been such a good R. Ulrich to have to try and push people in the right direction going into the time of the Wolf Emperor and the time of Three Emperors, but he's not going to make it.
Oh, we'll find out. We don't know the story yet.
Yeah, well,
and it's potentially horrific where it's going to go. Yeah, totally. So we're now heading into Bretonnia, where he can't speak the local lingo because they speak Bretonnian, which means he's going to be immersed in an entirely new culture, and probably working with the folk of the Empire because they're now the other that are his friends because they all speak the same language. So they would have been his enemies potentially in a different world, but now they're his friends as he moves into Bretonnia, forming up into groups. They're all excited to head towards the front lines as much as one can be excited. The anticipation is real as they're making their way down and then eventually heading off towards Estalia, which is now a shattered, broken realm. Many of it's still burning from the various fights that are still going on in some parts, but they're heading off towards probably either Tilia or down into Araby. Which do you think?
I would think that he's going to end up in Araby, to be honest. I think the way they've built this guy, in the way he's following his own kind of personal moral compass and stuff, I think he's going to go towards what he sees as like the heart of the beast, which is going to take him into the desert.
So he'll be pushing because he's an eloquent person. He's been trained to speak. He is, after all, a talking priest, so to speak. So he knows how to get his point across, and it's very possible that during these earlier parts, he's already taken a position of leadership because he is someone who has been trained at war, has been trained at tactics, has been trained how to fight. At this point, he is already a veteran fighter, even though he's still relatively young in his very early 20s. He is fully capable of killing pretty much most things that cross his path. And also, if he wishes, he can bellow out prayers of Ulrich and be answered. Remember, not all prayers come with flashy lights. Some of them are just, bellowing words in Old Berrigan, in Old Teutogen, and he just becomes like a frenzied killer
honestly,
in the front line.
It's really easy to see, especially in Araby itself, how he would be such a fucking legend. Like someone manifesting the powers of the white flame and ice in the land of the desert is good. Like the tales that would be told about him,
lives because of water.
Yeah. Like he would genuinely be one of the most significant figures in especially the Arabian part of the conflict. Of that, a lot of the ways that Jafar's armies killed a lot of these major groups is that they would lure the knights out into the desert, chasing them, and they would just exhaust them. They would just keep leading them deeper and deeper to where there's no water and their armor is really hot, and they just let the desert kill them.
So one interesting thing is, because he has chosen to be a priest, he doesn't need to wear armor. He probably doesn't. At all. He doesn't need to be sitting with a
man out there in skivvies.
A wolf. He doesn't need to have his wolf pelt on. He doesn't need to have any of those things because of the story that you've chosen. So this all works really rather well. Cut a long story short, because I am also conscious of the time, what we have is his first years down there, probably being guerrilla warfare. It starts off with him being part of major offensives and then splitting off and becoming a local guerrilla warfare expert. An early form of leadership because everyone else just doesn't have the skills that he has. He's already a trained general. He just needs to have experience. And within the first few months of that campaign, people die, experience comes, and he is blessed. He's going to do relatively well in the greater scheme of things. We know he's headed towards our Ulrichdom. He is going to do well. And he ends up down the deserts of Araby, leading what is effectively a multinational group, a mixture of Bretonnians, Empire, probably some Norse, a whole bunch of different folks.
The wolf of the desert, or the wolf of Araby.
Exactly. And by the time he turns like 24, 25, at this point now, he is literally a terror to face in the battlefield. He is probably a figure of local legend. He probably has some desert wolves that ride with him.
Yep.
So, sandy furred desert wolves that go with him everywhere. People come to him, the wolves growl in his presence. He doesn't need to be, these are manifestations of being blessed. He doesn't actually need to be this big flashy thing. It's just the wolves come to him because they do. He's a manifestation of Ulrich's will on the world.
Yep. And
he is going to war.
I'm not letting it go because I love it, of that he meets a descendant of the rebel Ulrich, who is a knight that he falls in love with.
No. Isn't that Valgir?
No, because
it's Rebel.
We said his first wife is
Valgir. Get mixed up. Okay, so this is perfect because now this is where he gets his moral quandary, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we already have determined that this moral quandary is going to be a failing on his part. And he's going to fall in love out in the deserts with her at his side, probably fighting almost on a nightly basis. In a foreign land, in fighting a foreign war for foreign people and doing what he can to save. And I think rather interestingly, let's really turn it around. By year 3, he's saving the Arabians, both from their own people and Crusaders.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a really cool thing of, like, you have a potential conflicts worming back about the Wolf of Araby, who has killed Bretonnian knights. He has killed Sigmarite knights. He is like Like you can almost imagine there being like some dark legend about like maybe somewhere in the desert
I just thought bringing it up because it made me laugh.
There's no way a wolf-centric man with a cloth would fight a gorilla war, but he's a wolf man. Yeah, but you can imagine there's like some ancient legacy about somewhere in the desert. If you know where to look, there is a ice, like a big pillar of ice that he manifested that has something or someone trapped in it, and there are legends about who did he trap in it. Was it a demon? Was it like some lord of Bretonia who was massacring innocent people? Was it, and that could lead to all sorts of rumors about, did he do a good thing? Did he do a bad thing? Did he murder fellow men because he was an uncontrolled rampaging monster? Or was it because he thought he was doing the right thing? And was he actually doing the right thing? Or was he just kind of following like a very wibbly wobbly compass? Like there would be so many myths and legends about this time that it would be so difficult to suss the truth out of.
Yeah, and I really like the idea here that he is, given the character that you built for him, he is an ally of people, not of sides. So the Arabians are as much a victim here as anyone else, and he will have learned that through going through meeting all of the various people, and finding out they're just people. All of the antagonism that he was brought up to believe was the very core of what it was to be an Ulrican, he's turned his back on, and he's realized that he should be protecting the people. He should be fighting for the people, whether they're Arabian, whether they're Estalian, whether they're Tillian, whether they're Norscan, no matter where they come from, good people should be defended and fought for. That's how it should work, just like Ulrich did in the north. Ulrich ignored all of his brothers, ignored all of his sisters, all the gods who sat in the south, who said that chaos was no longer a threat. He ignored them all and went to war by himself. And he's basically following in the footsteps of Ulrich, fucking up in his own way, meeting people and fucking them like Ulrich did, having children like Ulrich did. In many respects, he's following in the footsteps of Ulrich, repeating the story, but in a very different human way and in a human scale, and realizing that all of the politics is bullshit, classic Ulrican position to arrive at.
Yeah, and
politics suck.
I would not put it past him of like, especially before he met his eventual White Wolf love, of like, he probably had like an Arabian lover at some point.
Yeah, I think so.
And he has children down there, which like is an interesting legacy to leave behind.
Yeah, he's someone who is following in the footsteps of Ulrich in many ways. But as we've said, we're going to have ourselves this White Wolf, and those two become quite the partnership, I imagine. So let's give her rank. Let's make her a master of one of the grand companies, so that you understand what that means. The Knights of the White Wolf are split up into lots of different companies. For example, we mentioned earlier, White Company is centered in modern-day Kislev. It used to be Ostland and Ostermark, where White Company is. Black Company is down by Nuln. Red Company is over by Altdorf. Blue Company is up in Middenheim, or at least it was in modern day. At this point, Blue Company's down in Talabheim. Gold Company is responsible for looking after the Great Flame. They've been kicked out. So Gold Company's encamped outside of Middenheim, don't even get to come in. All pure-blooded Teutigans. Each of the companies has got its own master, master of each one of the companies, and each one of all of the companies, the masters respond to the Grand Master's call. So that's the Grand Master of the whole order.
Yeah, so she would probably be master of blue or gold.
Yeah, I mean, it could be blue, could be gold, could be what, it could be yellow.
Well, based on her ancestor.
I think gold is very likely, because gold is currently got no home.
Yeah,
because they've been kicked out. So her being the master of Gold Company is pretty much perfect. She's a pure-blooded Teutigan. She can trace her bloodline all the way back before the time of Sigmar, from when the Teutigans came across the World's Edge Mountains and attacked into the Right Basin, much like the Gospodars are going to do later, because the Teutigans are also a tribe from the north. But
yes, they are.
There's a lovely story there that we're going to be going. So we've got the Gold Company commander who is falling underneath his lead, because he is a natural commander, and she is also a natural commander. But he is fighting a fight that's unlike anyone else down there, because everyone else down there is fighting against the Arabians. He's not. He's fighting a war for the people.
Yeah, which is perfect because this sets up for like there are going to be so many consequences for when he returns to the Empire, which he's about
Let me just bring this up. There are no Knights Panther.
Yeah, they haven't
they're not a proper thing yet.
Yeah, they're going to be after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not thinking it. But like Revit, now we'll just run a little over time. It's fine.
Yeah, we're I mean, the story is beginning to make itself pretty clear.
It's fine. We'll run a little over time. It's not a big deal. You have that he's out doing what he sees as a morally just crusade, but the people that he's often fighting against who will survive and get away from him in many instances, many of these people are going to be very wealthy, rich, often noble people who are going to hate Ulricans when they get back to the Empire. And they're going to hang on to that prejudice hard.
Yeah, particularly because he is doing what you shouldn't. He is killing men of the Empire.
Yeah, like you can almost imagine like little Sarusses making their ways back to the cult in the Empire and them being like, what is he doing?
He's gone native.
Yeah.
You know, they think he's gone native, but he in his head, he is doing nothing more than what he believes is the right thing, because that's largely what you've chosen for his choices so far. He is doing what he believes is right, and he believes that this war is the wrong war to fight.
Yep. I love this. Rookie champion. Wields a frost axe that billows clouds of evaporating ice as his blade brings the cold wind of the desert night.
Disagree hard. Oh, hard. Okay. And there's a reason I disagree with it, Ricky, because there is no way he get access to it down here. What you want to do is make something that's his character, not Ulrich. Ulrich is all about the icy wind and all that business, but he isn't. He's a wolf of the desert.
Yeah, I would almost see him ending up with an Arabian weapon. Like
I think so too, like a big long scimitar.
Yeah, like a gift to him from one of the peoples that he saves.
Yeah, something that speaks to the things that he has done, the things that he has earned, his achievements. You want to reflect that, and a frost axe is a perfect weapon for an Ulrican, but it's not a perfect weapon for this guy. This guy is somebody who is working hard locally, so will be rewarded locally.
I wonder if he could have almost like I don't know what weapons would be the closest to like an axe or a hammer that would still be an Arabian weapon.
I think there's a way to combine what Ricky suggests and what the exiled one here suggests. I picture him with an axe and a scimitar. I think in this earlier part of his career, he will be
later in life.
He's got the scimitar, and then later on, he is going to get one of those bad boys, the frost axe with the billowing clouds and evaporating ice. That would be
cool if he wielded like a wind, like it uses like the wind of the desert as like the magical property of the weapon,
and because it's him. And swirls up sand in their face and stuff like that.
Yeah, but because of his unique expression, it ends up being like they think of it as the cold wind of the desert night.
Yeah.
The desert at night is fucking freezing.
Yeah, I agree. So that means that we can get the aspects that Ricky suggests there,
which is actually fun because
which is cool.
Yeah, I could see him leaving behind Arabians that actually revere Ulrich as a god of the desert night. Because it's not winter per se, but it is that cold. It is that.
I like that. It's got a really nice
cold
ring
that the night brings.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so the Crusades wrap up. He's there for the end of it. But then it's time to go home, which is probably going to have a lot of mixed feelings for a lot of people that have been out there for a while.
Yeah, let's give him a very brief story through that. It'll take like about 4 or 5 sentences and say that he fights across Araby. He is part of both sides at different points, and he reaches the point that by the time he's been down there, right, almost into his 40s now, he's been there for a long time. And through the course of this time, I mean, when does he's meant to rise up when the Gospodar, so he's going to be coming back. So in this time, he's reached a point where he's got probably an army of thousands underneath his belt. He's seen as a champion of the people. And he's both feared and hated by both sides for different reasons. And they will treat with him at different points. And he will work for the honorable because he's an Ulrican. And that is how he is known by the various generals. Some generals on the Crusader side adore him because he is an honorable man. And the Sigmarites, who are true-born Sigmarites, will adore what he represents. But those who are there just to loot, steal, rape, murder, do all the horror, which is a significant number of them, hate him with a passion. So we get a lovely little balance off. And the same can be said for the Arabians. Those who are with Jafar hate him. Those who are rising against him love him. And he eventually helps with a bunch of the main battles. We have to have a reason that he goes back. Is it that the Crusades have ended? And if we're doing that, then we are dating it specifically, and we'll have to choose an age for him at that point. So perhaps he goes up and he involves himself with one fight or another near the end of the Crusades, or something calls him home.
So, I mean, we could have that. So there are two ways we could do this. Of that, he could be called home due to everything that goes down with the arrival of the
Gospodars.
The Gospodars.
Yeah, it seems to be an obvious choice, doesn't it?
Yeah, because that I could see that being the thing that brings him out and kind of forces him to return home.
Yeah, I think so too, especially because it speaks to everything else that he's done, because they arrive in 1497. So we can have him be, like, for example, in his 50s by this point. He's like an old hoary general. And he hears what's happening at home. The Crusades, he's got friends, he's got family, he's got a lover. Okay, she's in her 50s too. He's got an entire family. He's abandoned his own family, and then he hears that it's getting invaded. And like 2 years later, he'll arrive back with whatever he can muster. It's going to be it sounds almost horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poof. Yeah. Poof. Just poof. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's definitely a thing. So are we just going to run with he's just going back because of that?
I think that would make the most sense.
Given the hour, we kind of have to, decide to get him moving quickly, don't we? So yeah, I think getting him back for that. So the question is, how old is he going to be when he gets back? We're going to have him dealing with this war. That's 25 years worth of war that he's going to be involved with at a minimum, and possibly losing that whole war as well. Doesn't mean he dies in that war. He might not die. We decided that when the Gospodars arrived, that he'd be in, or was it when the Gospodars were finished, that he'd be in his 60s? If we have him in his 50s when he arrives there, that gives us all the time almost.
I was going to say, we have a 20-year span to play with.
Yeah, we can just have him arrive back in like late 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm well cool with that, if everyone else is cool with that. Okay, and that brings him back home.
Yep, I'm gonna grab some super chat stuff really fast.
See if we could get let's get a poll up. Yeah, let's get a poll up coming, which is going to be the follow-up. No, I don't want to decide what's happening with his family, because I think it's too easy to go for the good route, and I think I'd like to keep it mucky. So let's have how he returns. Does he return and come back as a representative of Ulrich, who has been fighting wars for all this time, or does he try to sneak back, showing that he's still got that guerrilla attitude, or is he going to be much more open, and I'm a blessed representative of Ulrich and I'm coming home? One is the upfront Ulrican way, the other one is the almost sneaky way that he did in his youth. Has he got past that and become someone who doesn't do that, or does he just creep all his way back home? Is there a third option we could get in there?
Honestly, I think those two are fine, to be honest. Unless someone in chat like really heavily suggests something, I don't really see. I think what I would think would make for a particularly unless you had it where like maybe his wife kind of takes the center stage of how they return as opposed to him.
No, I think I prefer him having to come back and then deal with the mess he left.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the style of his return, does he sneak back home like he did when he would have done when he was younger, or does he come back in a Ulrican bombastic fashion where it's very obvious who he is? All right, that pulls up. I'm gonna get some super chats that we because we got a few that we got to knock out. T-Blom, escape from Eldar, not Elder, completely changed the meaning. Both people fleeing the Eldar here. Yeah, Darius Rose, who's more bloodthirsty, Tyrion or Bayverse Optimus?
Tyrion.
Yeah, Tyrion. Bayverse Optimus is rather murderous, but Tyrion is the
roll out. But no, Tyrion.
Friend or traitor, the backstory for Ulrich is some dads born too late to invade Araby, born too early to invade Araby, born just in time to invade Araby. Yeah. Darius, then he is going to write a book of how he punched JC Ventura in the face, like Chris Kyle. Yeah.
He never change.
The River Guide, how does the White Flame affect its city people?
In a lot of ways. I suggest reading the Midden Handbook. Because we're relatively late, so that's the best place to go for a source.
He might find a magic web or something similar. Yeah, I think we kind of decided on like a cool wind blade, which is really
indeed.
fun.
And then he'll when he's back up in the north, he'll get the axe you suggested, because I think that works really well for later.
Yep, and we do love our dual wielding our Ulrichs, just like good old Emil. The Thraslin Theater. Oh God, he's gonna face off the Sultan 1v1.
You know what? I think this is something that's happened. I think he has fought against him multiple times, and there's been both wins and losses.
Yeah, it actually helps establish the Great Sultan as a significant threat if he's faced off against our Ulrich multiple times, and it's kind of been undecided almost every time.
Yeah, totally.
Darius Rose, can we have a Dick Cheney and Karl Rove advisor? No. Ricky Chapman, he gets a frost axe as we already did that one. Thank you again. I pictured him with Axe Scimitar. We got that. Thank you so much. T-Blob, thank you for the 5 months. Woo! Night Panther. What is the relation with them? They don't exist yet.
Yeah, the Knights Panther form after the Crusades from all the money they steal.
Yeah, likely though. To your last,
they are on the looting side.
there likely would have been people who will become the first generation Night Panthers who fought against him.
Definitely.
Yeah. Darius Rose, in the name of the Father, let that boy be. Exiled 1, I hope he gets a cool trinket / trophy from all the honorable factions down south. Yeah, his one blade.
Yeah, I think he'll probably have gained a bunch of artifacts down the south. So far, we've only settled on a blade, but he's definitely someone who could become much more than that alone. And again, remember, as an Ulrican, he probably still holds on to who he is, even though he's hidden a lot of it from others, which means he's a big, long, bearded fellow. He's probably got a beard halfway down south. His hair is all long and wild. He is very much an Ulrican. They don't cut their hair.
Yeah, so the chats have decided he comes back loud.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think that
he's a changed man.
The character. He's a changed man. He comes back with the blessings of Ulrich, with his army. He has almost certainly been given. Pardon me, I might sneeze. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, pardon me. You. He has probably secured several Arabian corsairs and possibly some ships of the Empire and maybe Britannia as well to help effectively fleet his way all the way back to Erengrad. He's going to go all the way around. And he's going to come probably with a good few thousand people who are loyal to him. A bunch of his most loyal soldiers will stay in the south for the continuing crusades. So they will continue down there. And that very possibly includes some of his own sons and daughters who will continue to lead on in that fight in his name, carrying the banners of the Desert Wolves that they've been carrying. And the banners of the Desert Wolves arrive in Erengrad to provide some sort of support against the Gospodars who are now coming in like a bloody tide down the World's Edge Mountains into the Ottoman Empire. And they are massacring everything in their path, effectively enslaving the Ungals, and they believe they are effectively on a holy mission to secure this land from what they believe to be idiots who are not properly taking control of it or tending it, really. The Ulricans, the representatives of the ice god, are rubbish and are getting slaughtered wholesale. They also don't believe that men should have many of the positions of power that the Ottoman Empire fully allows them to have, including Ottoman Empire is not that down on, for example, wizards. Wizards are an issue that Sigmarites don't like. They don't care. They're slaughtering wizards wholesale, and they're slaughtering many of the priesthoods as well. The Gospodars are not a good force as far as the local defenders are concerned. And there are horror stories of Ungals being massacred by their thousands, and those who survive get enslaved.
Yeah, this is very cool for this character, as it sort of serves as in what a very human perspective of, I've been training for this. I made the right choice. Like, if anything, I think he would see this as a very hard justification he made the right call, because now it's coming for them, but it's coming from the other direction.
So I think, given the hour, we're going to have to head towards wrapping up relatively swiftly. But I think there's one key component of all of this, and that's that he is, over the course of the next so many months, going to come to a very clear realization that the Gospodars and the Teutogens are identical. They are both refugees of a war in the north that have got a holy mission to arrive. So we could twist this story in a different way. And this is a question that you'll now need to decide what you think.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
He has arrived for a war and fully intends to engage and does, but then he realizes that their holy mission is no worse or better than Ulrich's. Does he decide that the Gospodars are right? And if that's the case, then we have ourselves a spicy potential nomination for our Ulrich. Now, before we tackle that, we have to decide one other thing, which is, when does he become our Ulrich? Is it upon the battlefield, the old our Ulrich dies against the Gospodars, and the Desert Wolf is nominated as a blessed priest? Or, well, I think that's really the only time he's going to get nominated now, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's going to happen now. So that means we are going to go with the core question, which is, he's become our Ulrich, promoted on the field almost. He is the perfect general. And now, as our Ulrich, does he come to the realization that fighting for the people is what's important? And he thinks, having spoken to and worked with some of the Gospodars, because he's not someone who believes that everyone foreign is wrong, does he listen to them and say, they just want Kislev, give it to them?
Support
that would be fucking spicy, and the Talabiklanders would fucking hate it.
Yeah,
despise it. They're like, no. Okay, when our Ulrich, who's supposed to be defending them, stands up in the halls in Talabheim, and before the Emperor says, we must cede the territory, they deserve it, Ulrich would rather they had it. They are right in doing this. This is not our war. Our war is what lies beyond. They're our future allies. That'll make the cult of Ulrich deeply unpopular in Talabheim.
Yep. Yeah, that would also lead to, I feel like that would actually lead very much to a storyline where he gets assassinated.
Then we have an alternate side, okay, because we have to have an option here. So one option that you could go for is he basically turns traitor as far as Talabheim is concerned. The other option for him is that he and his desert wolves basically go to town against the Gospodars. And they are single-handedly responsible for why that campaign takes 25 years.
Yeah,
now it's a really large amount of territory. But they have winter on their side. Well, kind of, because they've got Ulrichans on their side too. But the Ice Witches are terrifying. Mishka is awful. So that makes for a fun, different version of him. One is he fights and fights and fights and fights and fights, but ultimately loses. Or he's someone that, because of his past, you instead say no. He looks at it all and says the Teutogens also fought this war, and everyone that went against the Teutogens died, because that's what the Teutogens did. They had a holy purpose. Gods, the Ancient Widow in this particular case, okay, Urson, all the rest of them that are holding on to Kislev, want the Gospodars to have it, and I will not stand against those gods, because they're not the Chaos gods. Why are we denying the gods? And he will take a very holy position. So on one side, he takes a very holy position and believes the Gospodars are right. And on the other side, he takes a very warlike position and believes they have to be stopped. I think that makes one hell of a choice.
Yeah, I do not think there's a bad choice here. There are very difficult.
Both make super cool characters.
Choice.
Yeah. I like both these stories.
Are going to leave him with a very interesting legacy. Of it, because like on one hand, like if he goes to war with the Gospodars and he takes his desert wolves in, he is going to be unleashing some serious horrors against a faction that ultimately wins and becomes modern day Kislev. Of that, he's going to be remembered in a lot of the by the Kislevites in not a very positive light. Whereas if he is on the option that kind of moderates for calling moderate for peace, but like tells the Empire to kind of stay out of it, that is the option that is in somewhat ironically going to save the most lives, but it's also going to make him deeply, deeply hated by many people.
Quite like that, Tablam. To get Ricky's accent.
Prozac from the Gospodaries.
Yeah, so it's either going to be as a gift or as looted.
Yeah.
So yes, which would you prefer? Would you prefer him to be influenced by war or prefer him to be influenced by his experience?
Yeah, when he meets with Mishka, is it as a ally congratulating her on establishing
I don't think it will ever be that to begin with. I think it's something that, I mean, he's going to go to war with them, both sides, but one side, he's going to change his mind. On the other side, he's going to double down and fight and continue fighting.
I almost kind of see the support option as doing what he was doing in Araby, where he kind of is fighting for people regardless of side.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I think.
Yeah, whereas the second option is more of that he sees this place as his home, and therefore it must be defended.
Yep, both works. Right, we got the vote up. Yeah,
the vote is up. People are voting. People are voting. I'm gonna give them just another minute or so. But so far, it's pretty heavily in one end, which is going to have.
Wow, it really is.
Picking up a very, very different character than I thought we were going to have at the start of this.
Okay, so because of where we are, I think we call this one. Yeah. We're supporting the Gospodars. So I think we've got an obvious answer for how this is all going to end. So he is going to go to Talapine, and in Talapine, having fought against the incoming Gospodars for maybe about a couple of years, and eventually reached a point where he's treated with them and found that the Ice Witches are super cold and super manipulative. They are very much, this is what we want and why. And he sat down and he's gone, I think I agree that you are on basically a mission from the gods, and that standing against you is just wasting our lives. Why are we doing this? Why are we pitching ourselves into this war? And he goes back and he says, this is the wrong war. They are our future allies. Cede the territory, work with them. And obviously, the Otolins go, fuck you. All of the various dukes and counts and whatever that are currently holding lands over there are like, get out of it. That's my land. We're going to fight. And he's like, no, don't. And as Ryan suggested, he's heading towards assassination. We all know who's going to do that. His wife.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. There's the spice. There's the spice.
The Valgir. Okay, the man who's betrayed her, the man who's gone off and is perfect. His wife. Okay, which sets up a massive schism for the cult of Ulrich as well, where the Valgirs will be seen as doing what's right for Ulrich according to some, the war, and you've got our other family line, the descendants of the previous our Ulrich, who will be going, fuck you all. Fuck you all. His own family, who are going to be divided, the whole of the cult of Ulrich.
About 49 kids. I thought that he fights hard at first against the Gospodars over the years, comes to realize that these are future allies. Of that he gets the same realization that he had down to Araby. We're men. It's all this nation shit is just dumb bullshit.
And the true enemy lies with chaos, as in Jafar is chaos.
He's one of those figures where the history of him is super complex, but from a Warhammer outside perspective, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gets him killed.
And that's what gets him killed. It also makes a massive schism for the cult, where both the cult of Ulrich itself is torn to shreds over what has occurred as the crying wife has assassinated her own husband and declared him a traitor. A complete traitor to everything that is Ulrich, everything that he stood for, literally all of it.
That's okay. So good.
And she is distraught. And she will then pack off herself to go to war by herself if necessary to head towards the front line. Which turns into an awful war and a waste of life because of the death of our Ulrich.
Like you see the the complexity of like those that were either burned by him during the Crusades because he went against them from like because they were looting or whatever, versus the older members of the cult who really would probably not have liked a lot of the shit he would have been such a threat to the established order.
Yeah, and then of course that's when the Knights Panther get themselves established and get a chapter house in Talabheim as well. You can see all the seething politics and how much all of the hatred that he had managed to build and foster down in the south comes crashing back home. And it just splits the Ottomans up in a variety of ways and eventually will lead to, not too many years later, the complete fragmentation of parts of the Ottoman Empire as the Wolf Emperor in the north declares himself independent, taking a lot of the territory from both of the two existing empires, and the cult of Ulrich that comes over, utterly shattered and swearing an oath, basically, of political intent, of chastity, to break up any idea ever again of long royal lines in the cult of Ulrich, because they shattered the cult. He is effectively seen to be a figure that broke the cult, where in truth he was just doing the Ulrican thing.
Yeah, I think he would very much, especially in the modern age with the Valgyrs being in the
chaos
power
in this story. Just so we've got this one, makes me wonder what kind of evil the Sultan was, and the answer in this one is chaos, because that's the enemy that he determines, as in our Ulrich determines, is the ultimate bad guy.
Yeah, this would tie in well to the Demons of Chaos storyline, where Sultan Jafar was very good allies with Kairos Fateweaver and the Skaven.
Yep, absolutely.
At truth, like that was the core of his power.
Yeah, the Arabians weren't. He was. And that's what this our Ulrich learned before he was our Ulrich, that chaos was the root of evil.
Yeah, go watch
not Araby, not Bretonia, not the Empire, not the two empires. It's chaos, and he's learned the lesson that Ulrich learned, which is that chaos is what has to be stopped.
Yeah, go watch our Araby stream where we talk a lot about Jafar and like what he could have been and what the story suggests he is versus what of it could be lies, all that stuff. We have a huge deep dive on that. But yeah, that gives us such a great character for, if you were reading about him in the histories, he would be shown off to be a horrible, like, idiot monster that tore the cult apart, was unfaithful, was just the fucking worst. But then the more you would actually learn about the truths of his story, or the people that knew him personally that passed down nuggets, like the knight he was in love with, and the stuff that she would have passed down to her own family about him, or how like the Arabians that are like still acknowledge Ulrich as like this god of the desert knight, and how they talk about him and all this stuff, you'd find out no, he was a great man. He made some mistakes, but he was a great man, and they killed him for it.
Yeah, and the Valgyr that kills him is given front and center of the story, save the cult, and that's why the Valgyrs from this point onwards, when they move up to Middenheim, get such a core component of the cult of Ulrich behind them up in the north. And it will be a few centuries before it happens, but in a couple of centuries after that, the first our Ulrichs and the Valgyrs, and then a stream of them, until eventually you hit the modern knights and the Valgyrs take control, all because of them effectively assassinating the previous our Ulrich, which is not honorable at all. But the story is that she didn't assassinate him. The story is she honorably challenged him to combat and took him down. But that's not what happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because that is such a good like taint on the rightness that the Valgyrs claim to have so strongly. Totally. That's great.
I love that. We've managed to turn what was looking to be a relatively simple story into one that's full of betrayal and bloodshed and horror. A man who betrays his family for what he believes is the right thing that ultimately leads to his assassination.
That makes him a very perfect Warhammer character. If you have a Warhammer character that is genuinely trying to do the right thing, they either end up they're either punished for it or they end up on the path to hell's paved with good intentions route.
Yep, every single time.
Wow. Super Arlock, why do you think the Gospodars didn't tear down the big temple of a foreign god in their new capital?
Why? They're not anti the gods that they're going there. Ulrich is a god that shouldn't be pissed off. Why would you want to piss off Ulrich?
I will say, I think what Super Arlock is leaning into, and I agree, is that I think this leans into why even that the Gospodars ended up having a very positive relationship with Ulrich. That has carried on to this day.
Some Ulrichans.
Yeah, some. Yeah.
Actually, you could do a really nice thing and say that temple, because that temple, I think it's the thingy of the white, whatever, I can't remember. You could, because we added it to the Kislev book, you could say that temple is basically dedicated to him.
Yeah.
Because of that, they dedicate it to him.
Which would be fun, because then you kind of have that the modern head of the cult of Ulrich isn't as...
And it's also possibly why there's no, because the Gospodars don't allow it, there are no talking wolves there, because they don't trust them anymore because they're assassins. So we've actually got the story for why because that was left as a big hole as to why that was the case. We'd never answered that one. In this story, the reason that there's no priest of Ulrich allowed in Kislev. They're not allowed into Kislev.
Oh, I love that, because then, like, I could see from a Kislev perspective, he's known, like, after he was assassinated, he's remembered as, like, the last wolf of Kislev is, like, what they would... That's what they would call him.
The last honorable wolf of Kislev and the last talking priest that they would ever...
And they're like, never... Well, we know what you did. We will never let one of you in. We know what you did.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's great, because that gives Kislev a really spicy perspective on the whole situation.
Yeah, I think having a revered shrine with that scimitar inside that temple is pretty cool. Nice one, Exiled One.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, like maybe his partner that was the gold company master. She took it up to Kislev,
and then very possibly she then leaves and joins White Company and leads it.
That's great. I dig it. I dig it a lot.
I love that. That's just brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, the shrine always has a cold howling wind that can be heard from within. That I love that. That's super duper great. Good job, everyone. Good job. That's a great character.
Yeah, good job, peeps. You kick ass. I quite like this, Ulrich. There's a story.
What a tragic figure.
Yeah, poor guy. Wow. Okay, well, thanks all. What we have is an Ulrich who was born in Ostermark to one of the more important dynasties of the cult of Ulrich, because there was entire dynasties back then. He was married off at a young age to one of the to the Valgirs, a noble line to continue on. It was that way around, wasn't it? I keep getting that in front of those ones. It was the Valgirs he's married off.
Yes, yeah, he married the Valgirs young.
Where he has several children and he is blessed early. He keeps the blessing to himself because he's terrified that he's going to be whisked away from his family and his kids to the temples over in Talapheim and effectively kept by the cult. Over time, he starts hearing news of the great threat to the old world, a threat unlike any other, where the gods themselves are screaming out that people have to head south and defend against what's incoming. Eventually, it reaches the point where he believes that the only right thing to do is go south. He talks to his wife. She reluctantly agrees. He says goodbye to his family, expecting never to see them again, and heads south. When he heads south, he quickly learns, passing through the other empire, passing through Bretonia, passing through Estalia, Tilia, down into Araby, that the great game of politics that sets one person against another is all a great lie. The true fight, the great enemy he's working against that he believed was the Arabians, isn't. And as the months turns to years, he comes to lead a great guerrilla force in the deserts, a guerrilla force that fights for the people, not the politicians who are determining that one person should be fought against another. And he learns eventually that it's not the Arabians that are the bad guys, it's who's leading them, and ultimately chaos. Because that is what taints the very soul of their leadership, but not their people. His army is filled with Arabians and Bretonians and Empire folk and Norskins and indeed anyway Southlanders, people from all around the world that have come to this place to try and fight against the great evil that is the Sultan that is attempting to fight out against everywhere. And he wars there for a long time. He has many children. He falls in love with and eventually has almost a second marriage with the Gold Company commander of the White Wolves, who has also come down because she believes it's the right thing. She never expected that she would end up fighting against her own people, though. But he was right, in her eyes at least. It was the honorable thing to do. Ultimately, that's what Ulricans believe in, honor. And she believes that the people on the other side and the side she was on have both fallen into dishonorable acts. Over the course of these years down there, he forges a reputation of doing the right thing. And that often meant that he would defend against his supposed allies because they were going to do the wrong thing. And he ended up making a lot of enemies across the armies, whether they were Bretonnians, whether they were Empire folk, no matter where they came from, because he was quite intractable. He would not back down. And he normally won. But he was clever enough that he realized when he should move, because he had to protect his own army after all, and was quick to withdraw into the desert and disappear. Whew. He does well. He gets rewarded, gets himself a cool scimitar. Cold wind in the night. Nice. He ends up with several desert wolves that ride with him. Canines are a core component of the desert wolf force that he builds. Eventually, the call of the North comes to him when the Gospodars invade. And hearing that his homeland and his very family are endangered, he can't in good conscience stay. And he decides that a new battlefield has called to him. He takes a portion, maybe about 15, 20% of his army north. The remainder stay behind to continue the fight in the Crusades. His children continue his fight in the south. Ulrican worship in a unique fashion spreads in the south because of this, the desert wolves. And the desert wolf arrives in the north. And in the north, he goes to war. Our Ulric, the Ar Ulric of the time, dies on the front lines against the Gospodars. Seeing this great blessed arrival of a general from the south, and also what turns out to be a local of Ostermark and a priest, when they elect the next Ar Ulric, he is their first choice. And on the front lines, he's effectively promoted to Ar Ulric. And he continues fighting.
Because they think he'll be the perfect weapon against the Gospodars.
Oh, yeah. And he continues fighting against the Gospodars for almost 2 years. And through the course of that, the Gospodars, well, they're savvy. Because we've got to remember that these are ice witches and they are filled with the chill of ice in their souls. And they know when they've got a real enemy. He's a real enemy. And they also know that he's not really their enemy. They believe that they are ultimately on the equivalent of a holy mission to protect the Ancient Widow, to protect the gods of Kislev, because they're not being protected by the locals. The Ungolds don't care anything for the Ancient Widow as far as they're concerned. They're not doing it properly. They have to be properly tended. So they send ambassador after embassy over to him as they continue slaughtering their way across the land until some get through to him. He listens and he goes, I'm doing everything that I said I wouldn't do when I was down in Araby. I'm not listening to people. So he takes a risk. He's a gambler anyway. All men of war know that sometimes it turns to a gamble. The second you start fighting, it could go any direction. So he listens and he thinks that maybe he can end this war. And he goes and meets with what was an enemy general not more than a week before and has talks with Mishka herself. And Mishka wins him round. And he's like, this isn't the right war. The war should be against where you've come from. You are just like the Teutigans. The Teutigans, my ancestors, fled that great war to build a bastion in the south, came to Ulric's holy hunting grounds around the great Fauschlag, the fist strike, and you're doing the same.
I love, you can just imagine the pit in his stomach when he finally gets to confront Mishka, and he thinks it's going to be like when he confronted Jafar all those years ago, and he realizes it's the complete opposite, and how that was
the same cold. It's the same cold, and using the cold to freeze out chaos. This is Ulric's plan.
Yep.
The Ancient Widow and Ulrich are clearly in cahoots. And he's come to the conclusion that very possibly the Ancient Widow is much like the Teutogens and much like the Gospodars, probably a traitor to their cause. Probably may even have been sympathetic to Chaos, but no longer is. Well, fuck this. This is not the war we should be fighting. Stop. And he heads back to Talabheim. There a loose truce between his forces and the Gospodars settles, but they continue to massacre and raid elsewhere. As he heads into Talabheim and says, "Hey, stop. This is the wrong war." No, not a single politician is willing to accept this, because after all, that's their land. That's their taxes. That's their people. Where the fuck are they going to go now? Nope, we are going to defend this to the last because it's ours. They've got no right to it. It's not theirs. It's ours. Fuck you, Ulrich. You are wrong. What are you even talking about? And this turns into a massive argument amongst the various forces in the parliaments at Talabheim. And it's also an argument for the Ulrichans. The Ulrichans on one side saying, the real war is in the north, and the Ulrichans on the other side say there's a real war over there right now. My family's dying, my children are dying. What are you talking about? And he's like, you're thinking about this wrong. You're thinking about it like a Sigmarite, defending what you believe is yours. Well, you've got to remember, assault, attack, and attacking the enemy, not the ones, they will stop attacking us if we just withdraw to the edge. That's it. Retreat to the forest, and it's done. We're finished. But all they can see is hundreds of miles of land that they're going to lose. They can't see it for what it is going to become. And he's like, the Teutogens didn't stop. They massacred everything in their path. The Gospodars will not stop. You will not stop them.
You could just see like how his enemies would twist it like this. Some people being like, you're just afraid. The last Ulrich died against them. You're just a fucking coward. That's what
absolutely. You can see the arguments, and he's like, no. And then eventually it turns into the even bigger argument when his own wife, who he abandoned, argues against him in the parliament. All the nobles, and she ends up being the representative against him because, after all, she is a Valgyr and a noble herself, and she owns the land in and around Kislev. That's her ancestral land. And he's trying to say she should just give it up. That his children who are going to inherit the land should just give it up. Give up all your land. No! Now, the honorable thing to do would be to challenge him to combat, because that's how Ulrichans do it. And she indeed comes over to go through what appears to be the process of it and just stabs him in the fucking chest and screams, killing him in the middle of the open parliament. Ulrichans on one side and another, absolutely appalled and horrified, both at the fact that he was speaking what they consider to be nonsense, and also at the deeply dishonorable act. But she doesn't even perceive it as dishonorable. She perceives that she's ambushed him. Ambushes are a classic war tactic. Ulrich ambushes, wolves bite at the heels. They do that. And she even claims it. She claims, I've ambushed him. It's one of the most dishonorable acts you can do to assassinate someone, but an ambush is a sort of little loophole that they have, that they can occasionally pull. No one would recognize that as an ambush because she was walking underneath the flag of truce. An ambush is coming out of the forest, charging them, and they get a moment to turn around and go, oh, we're in a fight now. Gotcha. Let's have a fight. This isn't an ambush. It's an assassination. This is not an honorable combat, but they are so against everything that this Al Ulrich stood for that they take it. And that story over time will turn into honorable combat. And he lost because he was wrong.
Yep.
And that is the sad end to the tale of R. Ulrich, which then turns into a further 20 years of bloodshed on the Eastern Front. That
where they just get massacred, just get thrown away.
The Gospodars win, and they push them back. And such is that defeat. The Ulrichans, tails between their legs. The Ottilians completely push back, lose control of their massive empire, and almost a third of it leaves to join the Ulrichans as they leave in turn and head up to Middenheim, tails between their legs, to join the new Wolf Emperor as he declares himself separate. Wow. Holy
Delicious.
crap.
Delicious. It's great.
Thanks, everyone. That's pretty cool. Do we have any last little
for
bits?
the memory of a desert wolf. Thank you, everyone, for another wonderful story. Love you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
What's his name and how are his descendants doing? I'm sure he probably has a ton of descendants that are all
his descendants are probably the current Arorics. Because the Valgirs.
Yeah, the Valgir side.
Yeah.
He'd also have kids down in Araby. That would have probably an interesting legacy. And he'd probably have kids through his major night lover who would have a very, very different view. Like his legacy would be very hotly debated.
Yeah, I imagine that there's the line of wolves that are controlling Kislev, the White Company.
Yeah, that like revere him.
Many of them, they'll revere him as a core, the last true priest of Kislev, for Ulrich. Holy shit, that's cool.
That's great. Love it. I thought we were going to end up somewhere wildly different for so long. Like I had my head locked in for so long on he's going to have the climactic final battle with Mishka.
That's what I thought too.
Oh, Vorn, yes. The thumbnail typo proved prophetic. He really was the anal Ulrich.
Poor guy.
He had a very strict moral compass.
He did. Although a far looser one in some regards than many would expect, because he was his level of morals was very different to what most people consider to be moral.
There's a cool quote from some character in the universe. The last wolf of Kislev was one of the Sands. Great.
Yeah, cool. I love that one. Thanks, everyone. You kick ass. You chew gum.
I'm super happy we went a bit over time because that was worth it. It was totally worth it. That was really, really great. Science sticking in at the end here.
We both did it.
Showing up the right end to say hello, and I'm very excited to see Sotek. Science, like, I'm on a mission to see
it's happening.
The world of Eorzea. Yeah, I'll be there. I was helping him set up OBS stuff. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we were discussing it just yesterday, the other day, can't remember, whatever day. We were discussing it, and we're setting up all the OBS bits so that I can start doing it. Good times.
Yep. All right, and that is us done for today. I am, just because I have a moment as we're wrapping up here, I'm going to send us off on raids to go hang out with Vera to say hi to her, because we can.
Always good. Why not? Yeah. Go say hi to Vera for us.
Yeah. Andy, y'all doing shows this week?
Yeah, we are. We're the last episode of Lawhammer, for any who watched it. It took 150 episodes, but the party exploded. Wow. Delicious. Oh, the arguments, they were big. And all I can say, I don't want to spoil it for those of you who haven't watched it, but another plot line that has been building for about 100 episodes pulled off, and it was astonishing seeing Karl Franz's eye at the end as he cried, having seen what happened. Fucking brilliant.
Delicious. I will also note, also, live right now. So, first of all, go hang out with Vera, tell her we love her, and say hi to her. But also, the Lorebeards trimmed Slayers episode is officially out. The Lorebeards trimmed episode of Slayers is out, and holy shit, it is good. It is so good. He killed our lovely editor, Fokino. Absolutely fucking killed it. Also, keep an eye out for Lorebeard shorts. Those are going to be starting very soon. So
we're doing things. Stuff.
Yeah, things are happening. How crazy!
So exciting.
Brock 6000, thank you so much for the super chat. Fantastic stream story. Love Lorebeard, Lord Seekers. Love these. Thank you so much. We will see you guys again soon. Don't forget to 40K tomorrow. We will be back on Sunday with Village the Curseling, and it'll be a super good time. So please take care. Have a good one. Be safe. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.